Ready?
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this City Council regular meeting of October 3rd, 2022, 6 p.m. to order. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrieleño Tongva and Gabrieleño Kizh peoples. John Allendorfer, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Sure. Great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Madam City Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember D'Amico.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson.
Here.
Councilmember Horvath.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Present.
Mayor Meister.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Next, approval of the agenda. Staff, do you have any changes tonight?
There are no changes from staff, Mayor.
Thank you. Any changes from my colleagues? Councilmember Erickson?
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. I was wondering if we could move item 4B, Laurel House, to consent. I'm going to keep 5A, City X1.
Which is, I'm sorry, which?
The 5A, I believe that's 5A.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I was going to try and move 6B to consent.
It's fine with
Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
6B?
Yes, it's fine with me.
Yes. Okay, so we have 4B, Laurel House, moving to consent. 5A, which is the co-sponsorship with this CITY X1 Youth Group for the 2022 pre-Thanksgiving events. And then we have legislative item 6B, a proposed ordinance to amend the municipal code, establish an LGBTQ plus commission, and set rules and duties of the commission. All moving to consent.
Mayor, do we have any speakers on those items? I guess you'll ask City Clerk.
We have one, and I will move that person to speak under general public comment.
Okay. And I'm interested in moving item 6A, which is the urgency ordinance adopting a time limit, and making that a 12-month extension instead of 18.
Yep. I'm fine with that.
I have a few comments about that, but I'm fine with moving it.
Yep.
Okay, so that's 6A, urgency ordinance, adopting a time limit extension for approved discretionary planning, entitlements, plan check, and building permits for housing projects due to impacts from COVID-19. And yes, City Attorney?
There was a supplemental ordinance posted for City Council and on the agenda this afternoon. Is it the supplemental ordinance that you're referring to?
I didn't see that, but yes, it is.
Okay, so I think it's 18-month extension for projects that expire this year and a 12-month extension for projects that expire between January and June of 2023.
Okay.
Is that? It's
Great.
posted on the city's website for everyone to read.
Yes, that
Okay.
sounds perfect.
Right.
Oh, okay. Any other changes?
Can I try one more?
Go ahead.
I don't think I'm going to get this lucky. Can we move 4A to consent?
No.
Okay.
Well, tried. Okay, can we have a motion for our agenda, new agenda? We have a motion by Councilmember Erickson, second by Councilmember Horvath. All in favor? And we have an agenda. Excellent. Okay, do we have any adjournments this evening? Yes, Councilmember Horvath.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to adjourn tonight in memory of Mark Brian Kellum,
who passed away unexpectedly, surrounded by his family and friends on September 27th. Mark was the husband of Jeffrey Walk, former City of West Hollywood Public Safety Commissioner. Mark graduated from Indiana University with a degree in journalism. In 2001, Mark moved to Chino, California, and after meeting the love of his life, Mark moved to West Hollywood in 2004. As soon as same-sex marriage was legal in the state, Jeffrey and Mark married in October 2008. And at the time of his passing, Mark was a reporter and copy editor for Outlook News Group. Mark loved cats, theater, dancing, and singing, especially karaoke. For many years, Mark was a member of the LA Wranglers Country Dance Group. He was also known for his playwriting, having written plays produced in New York, Dayton, and Indianapolis. Mark also loved traveling with his husband and friends. A memorial service will be held from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, October 6th at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And of course, our condolences in our community, on behalf of all of our community, go to Jeffrey and their family during this difficult time. We send you our love, Jeffrey. I know you're watching at home, and I just am sending you a big hug in this very, very difficult time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to adjourn tonight in the memory of the countless Iranian people that have been killed by the government of Iran since Mahsa Amini's death as a result of the protests that have happened. These people include women, many, many children, students, and men and other people.
Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I would like to adjourn in memory of Sasheen Littlefeather, who recently passed away. I was trying to get tickets to go to the Academy Museum to see them formally apologize to her for her treatment of when she accepted the Best Actor award for Marlon Brando way back when. And I'm thankful that they were able to apologize, and she was able to be there to formally accept it, but I was very disheartened to see her passing away, I believe, of breast cancer. So I would love to adjourn in memory, in their memory today as well.
Thank you. And I have two. First, I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of Michael Arrigo, a longtime resident of West Hollywood and tireless advocate for disabilities. He served on the Disabilities Advisory Board from 1999 to 2015 and was a recipient of the board's 2007 Individual Disability Service Award. Michael loved West Hollywood and still found a way to stay involved with our community despite relocating outside the city. I'd also like to adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of Fred Holub, father of Jonathan Holub, our rent stabilization manager. Fred passed away on Saturday after a long struggle with pulmonary fibrosis. He will be deeply missed by his family and friends. And Jonathan, your West Hollywood family is very sorry for your loss. And with that, we will now go on to presentations. And I believe, Councilmember Horvath, you have a presentation.
I think we can do the other one first. That would be fine.
Okay. So then I will do our presentation, our council presentation about domestic violence and intimate partner violence awareness month. October is Domestic Violence and Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month. Since 1987, the month of October has been recognized as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and for decades, the City of West Hollywood annually joins this national effort to raise awareness about domestic violence and intimate partner violence. Last year, upon a recommendation from the city's LGBTQ+ Advisory Board, Transgender Advisory Board, and Women's Advisory Board, the city officially expanded its annual recognition to be known as National Domestic Violence and Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month to promote inclusivity and greater understanding of how this issue impacts all communities to the city. 3 out of 4 Americans personally know a victim or survivor of domestic violence. Over 80 million people across the nation have experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetimes, with 10 million adults annually. Nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner, and women are disproportionately affected, whereby 1 in 4 women has experienced domestic violence during her lifetime. Throughout October, communities and advocacy organizations across the country connect with the public and one another to raise awareness about the signs of abuse and ways to stop it, and provide additional resources to leaders and policymakers. In recognition of Domestic Violence and Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month, the city lanterns over Santa Monica Boulevard will glow in the color purple from October 7th to October 18th this month. And is there anybody here from the Women's Advisory Board, LGBTQ+ Commission, or Transgender Advisory Board to accept this proclamation? And Women's Advisory, did I say that already? Okay. It looks like there is. Hi. Well, we'll go there first and then. Oh.
Hello, City Council and staff and all of West Hollywood who's here. I wanted today to speak about the emotional abuse aspect of domestic violence. I learned from Larissa, as our board is working on a campaign to promote awareness about this, that 95% of the calls that the hotlines receive are about emotional abuse. And a lot of people don't even know that they're being abused this way, as a lot of the actions have become kind of normal, like negging. We hear of gaslighting, love bombing. So we are creating a campaign to teach about this so people can see not only when it's happening to them ahead of time, but when it's happening to their friends or their family members, or if they themselves are doing it without even realizing it. So I'm excited for you all to see it, and I'm excited with your approval. We're excited with your approval to get it out into the city. We also have some other events we're working on for domestic violence and intimate partner violence awareness, but we'll get to those another time.
Okay, well, thank you, WAB, for including me in this and this event that hopefully you guys will approve for February. It's going to be really amazing if it happens. I have something I was going to say during public comment, but if I could just spew it out now, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging Domestic Violence and Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month. You know, on this day, October 3rd, 1995, O.J. Simpson was acquitted of the murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ron Goldman. Nicole had documented her battered body and bruises and called 911 numerous times, but the system failed her. Sadly, this continues to happen to this day with the lack of police and sheriff training, something we all saw on the police cam video in the handling of Gabby Petito and her boyfriend, who ultimately killed her. And right here in West Hollywood in 2016, the horrible torture and murder of Iana Casillan by her fiancé. News media reported the crime as grisly and possibly the most gruesome murder in the history of West Hollywood, if not Los Angeles. It took her mother, Olga, several days of pleading with authorities that her daughter's life was in danger, but by the time sheriffs entered the condo, it was too late. And there's a handling or mishandling of the intimate partner violence and murder caused by resident Ed Buck. These are just a few of the headlines, but unfortunately, there are countless more stories. As council moves forward with nighttime safety studies and overall resident safety, please continue to monitor sheriff training and protocol of these crimes. Mary Jo and I personally appreciate all of you, and we will always be thankful to the city and to WEHO for sponsoring our I Remember Nicole music video that can be viewed on YouTube right now. Somebody asked me that, so thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. You know, the thing with domestic violence, that happens to every gender in every city, to every age. The only man that my mother ever dated after her divorce ended up being someone we thought was going to be a wonderful fit for her. Well, she hid the bruises. She hid the fact that she had to throw away a lot of her clothing. It literally took me and her children, who don't live anywhere, I mean, I live 2,000 miles away from her, to call neighbors, to have neighbors go check on their own mother. This is a man who tried to have her arrested for throwing a pan at him to defend herself. It starts with control, it starts with manipulation, and the reason why victims and survivors of this can hide it well, they feel that their lives are at stake. So it's not only important and amazing that we're doing this proclamation for October as a Mega Violence Awareness Month, but the only way we break the stigma is having people feel like there's an out. And an out is usually when they see someone they may not even know who cares. That is the way people get out, because they are literally fearful of their lives, which is why they aren't. Calling 911, we know, doesn't really do anything. Sorry, but it doesn't. Because unless that person literally has had if they're shot or they're stabbed, maybe then there'll be an arrest. There's not an arrest because they're getting beaten. So this is a problem every day in our society, and I'm very excited that we'll be putting before the council Project Silhouette, which will be an in-person remembrance of people and also a way to break the stigma and open up the discussion. And that's how people come out, because they are literally in a sinkhole. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
I know flags are really important to identify us. I wanted to make sure there was one here tonight so folks knew who I was. I was going to save this for public comment, but unfortunately 2 minutes really isn't long enough, so I'm going to just say it now. Good evening, esteemed council members, Mayor Meisner, City of West Hollywood. I was promised an update from the Sheriff's Department after speaking out. I received the same update that was previously disseminated to me prior to that request being made at City Council on August 24th. As it stands, they can no longer do anything about my case because the suspect is no longer cooperating. Then the current head of the LASD went on Instagram live from one of the clubs with the highest rates of sexual assault and drugging in the city to say activists are a tiny fractions that don't represent the community. The sheriff then gestures to the new West Hollywood captain and club owner and says, "These are the people who represent the community." This is the new impression the captain has agreed to make on the city by participating in this behavior alongside the sheriff on Instagram. I've also been notified the same club owner didn't want to accept drink test strips provided by the city inside their establishment, called it a liability. Eventually the test strips were given, but folks passing them out said they didn't feel welcome distributing them at the particular location. The current Los Angeles sheriff has admitted in a Los Angeles Times interview that 80% of his department deputies are far-right conservatives who believe in conspiracies. That same sheriff has created an environment that has caused damage to multiple communities across Los Angeles County and includes the denial of deputy gangs. To assume that West Hollywood isn't affected is naive, and especially after the discovery in a prior city council meeting that 100% of sexual assault drugging incidences that have occurred in West Hollywood brought no charges since 2016. It's important to note that the current leadership of LASD was elected in 2018, but these statistics go back to 2016. In the history of your city work, have you ever come across a statistic that was 100%? Does that not indicate to you that there was a problem? If you were sexually assaulted in West Hollywood, your case will be automatically transferred to Whittier, California, to a detective that might fail to bring in other victims related to your case. You might be told your case is not a priority, because that's what happened to me. It's interesting the times that we live in right now with Jeffrey Dahmer's relevancy coming back into pop culture. I'm reminded of Ed Buck and how it relates to the systematic issues within law enforcement when it comes to lack of empathy for LGBTQ plus survivors of sexual violence. I am here because one of the victims with the same potential suspect as mine took their life after telling me. The potential suspect is still in the community attending local nightlife in West Hollywood regularly. The detective on my case had over a month to reach out to the second victim and didn't. I was notified of their passing and sent a text message to ask the detective who spoke with the second victim. She responded, no, I never spoke with him. I've also spoken with the lieutenant who manages the detective. She could not explain to me why that detective did not call the victim. I then asked her, what are you going to do to prevent this from happening in the future? She has no answers throughout the call. That same lieutenant began to attempt to gaslight me and ask me why I didn't help that victim. I did. I tried. I sent them to your detective, gave them their number, their name, along with screenshots of them asking for a 72-hour hold referral. Then Lieutenant told me that the detective told me too much information about my case. You mean how I was last seen at 12:43, but the call didn't go out till 11 a.m.? It only took paramedics 7 minutes to get to me. Why was the call delayed? Security was making medical decisions for an unconscious person in a bathroom without knowing what was in their system for 30 plus minutes. The same security that said I was a Chilean pickpocket and they didn't want to help me. The footage provided by the club 2 weeks and 2 days later after the incident determined no timestamp of when the security went into the restroom, or why my clothing was wet down to my underwear and socks, or why the detective didn't even interview the manager or place their name in the report, or how I was sent a text message on December 23rd that my case had been closed only 2 weeks and 5 days after that detective was assigned to my case before DNA even came back. That same lieutenant who manages the detective said that my case has never been closed and always been open. Then I read a text message to her directly. The detective states, "Good morning, Shane. For the time being, I'm going to close your case. When we get the results of the exam, if there's any DNA or additional evidence to work with, we will reopen it. Please contact me with any questions or concerns.
Shane.
Happy holidays."
Shane, I'm sorry.
The lieutenant replied,
Shane.
"I don't know why she would say that." I'm going to keep going. I'm sorry. I don't have time for it. I've said so much. I've been through so much. I've
understand,
worked so
Shane.
hard. I'm not going through it.
I
And I've got so
understand,
many
Shane.
people here that'll lend me their time. So Meisner, I'd really appreciate if you didn't. So I'm going to keep going.
It's Meister, and I'm sorry, Shane.
I'm going to keep going. At a Public Safety Commission on August 24th, the head of security with the club where I was assaulted, whom repeatedly stated has a great relationship with the LASD, how about...
Shane, I'm sorry. We appreciate your coming and telling us your story and sharing this with us, but we have to move on now.
How am I supposed to say this in 2 minutes? How am I supposed to say all of this in 2 minutes? 100%, and no one cares. 100%. 100%. What you've done by taking off my mic, it's fine.
I'm sorry, Shane.
Excuse me, I would like to hear him finish, actually. I think this is, I mean, it's unorthodox, and probably the mayor can ask me to keep it to myself too, but I think this has been something we have been trying to have conversations with the Rape Treatment Center about, and the Sheriff's Department about, and our downtown Sheriff's Department, and we all sat here for a year and a half while Bill Mulder said there was nothing to be done about Ed Buck. A year and a half he came every month. I insisted when I was the mayor that he come every month, and he said there was nothing to do while young men were tortured in his apartment. And I have to tell you, Shane, that this is an appropriate thing to be bringing to the city council, as uncomfortable and complicated as it is. And I don't want to make this our mayor's problem. She's actually trying to run a good meeting, but I would ask if my colleagues, can we give you 3 more minutes, and we'll hear what you have to say.
I've got it timed to 6 minutes. At a Public Safety Commission meeting on August 24th, the head of security of the club where I was assaulted, who repeatedly stated has a great relationship with LASD, talked about everything that goes on in their club. They know what happens. That same individual used air quotes when talking about rape in their bathrooms in some bizarre PR attempt to disarm commissioners while presenting, asserting they aren't a great public speaker while repeatedly confidently explaining their LiveScan ID system and how well it works. They go further on to talk about their amazing 360 cameras that see everything, but not what's going on in the bathroom, of course. Again, the video evidence supplied by the club where I was assaulted was unable to give the detective a timestamp on when security even went into the bathroom to discover me in the first place. All you see is shoes and lower half of bodies. I still wonder if he was the manager that the deputy forgot to mention. My question is, how did your security not know I was in the bathroom for 30 minutes? And why in the police report did your security guard not remember if my pants were on or off? I'm not the only one who has this type of story since going public. There are dozens of stories in the same area and the same clubs keep popping up. So I'm here again asking City Council to take action before someone else ends up dead. The detective texted me the second victim's driver's license to confirm if they had the right body but never contacted that person when they were alive to help them. I am asking City Council, who benefits the most from these crimes going unsolved? And if the sheriff is actively fighting with the district attorney, where does that leave survivors that are caught in the middle that are properly trying to get their case looked at? 100%. 100% is unheard of in statistics. You can't name anything that's at 100% in this life. Something is up, please. I've gone to every resource possible. I need allies. I need help.
Thank you, Councilmember Horvath.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also add that during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, the largest provider in our region of services for support for survivors of domestic and intimate partner violence had their servers taken away at the political behest of our current sheriff. So there's a lot to be said, and I'm glad it's being said, at least in this public space. Tonight, I also want to recognize a new friend, Sylvia Vasquez Lovato. I will share in her own words how she talks about her story, but for me, meeting her was an absolute inspiration. Learning about her courage, her perseverance, and the example that she sets for all of us here in our community and around the world in terms of her leadership and the ways that she's helped to build community are absolutely extraordinary. And so it's my honor to introduce you all to her tonight if you don't already know her story. In celebration of National Hispanic Heritage Month, as well as in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, the City of West Hollywood would like to acknowledge and celebrate the trailblazing work and contributions of Sylvia Vasquez Lovato. Sylvia is a humanitarian, an adventurous mountaineer, an explorer, a social entrepreneur, an author, a technologist, an LGBTQ rights and women's rights activist. She was born and raised in Lima, Peru, and became the first Peruvian woman to summit Mount Everest and the first openly gay woman to complete the 7 summits, a challenge to climb the highest mountain on each continent. Sylvia is also a sexual violence survivor who found healing and power in mountaineering. In 2014, she launched The Courageous Girls, a nonprofit that helps survivors of sexual abuse and trafficking with opportunities to find inner strength and cultivate their voices by demonstrating their physical strength. Sylvia is an advocate for the LGBTQ equality, women's rights, and sexual abuse survivors. Her memoir will soon become a film, In the Shadow of the Mountain, which chronicles her journey and courage. We hereby recognize Sylvia Vasquez Lovato for her extraordinary accomplishments and commit to creating a safe space for women and the LGBTQ+ community Thank you for the example that you set, for the spirit that you bring to our community and wherever you go. Your example is absolutely a luminary for all of us, so please keep shining your light. I'd ask my colleagues to join me in this photo.
First and foremost, just a couple of words. Mayor Lauren Meister, Mayor Pro Tempore Sylvia Shine, Councilmember Horvath, Councilmember D'Amico, Councilmember Erickson, City Manager Wilson. Thank you so much for this acknowledgement and this recognition. I am incredibly touched, honored, and humbled. As a survivor, as an immigrant survivor of sexual abuse, it was actually the very first time I came to West Hollywood in 2004 after completing the AIDS ride. And as we were welcomed by such a light and joy in the community, it actually made me open up my heart as a proud gay woman who wasn't accepted by her family. Finding a new community empowered me. And I know that right now, even what we just heard, there's a lot of challenges, but I know the work that we're all doing, opening up community, being able to listen to each other, can allow us to still get people open up their hearts. The timing right now, we can't take anything for granted. As an openly gay women, there are gay people all over the world dying. Here in our cities as well, unfortunately, there is a lot of hatred that we still need to stand up. And with this recognition and with the opportunity of sharing my story, it is my commitment to stand proud as a gay woman, to know that I'm no different than anyone else, that we all have the right to love, the right to shine, the right to be accepted for who we are. So I really want to acknowledge and thank you so much for this recognition. It truly means the world to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are going to actually have a little switch because the city is going to be receiving a presentation. The city is honored to receive the 2022 SCAN Foundation Innovation Award for the Aging in Place, Aging in Community initiative. We will start with a brief video to share. In 1984, the city of West Hollywood was created by a coalition of LGBT activists, older adults, and renters looking for a place where they could live free from discrimination and age in their community. Since then, the city has created housing policies to stabilize rents and prohibit discrimination. They've invested in affordable housing and committed millions of dollars annually for social services to our community, 20% of that funding for programs specifically serving older adults.
I'm a 36-year resident of West Hollywood. I live here because it's convenient for me. I can be without a car and still reach my grocery store, bank, and attend the library. I like the city keeps up their sidewalks. They were very passable. I will be 80 and intend to age in place in West Hollywood.
In 2016, the city launched its 5-year strategic plan, Aging in Place and Aging in Community initiative. The initiative's framework is based on the World Health Organization and ARP's network of age-friendly communities and mirrors the 5 bold goals outlined in the California Master Plan for Aging. The City Council utilizes the expertise found among our commissions, advisory boards, task force, residents, and businesses to identify community needs and solutions.
The Senior Advisory Board wanted to address the issue of isolation facing so many senior adults living alone in West Hollywood. We put our heads together and we came up with
let's do a TED Talk, because you can learn something new. And that formed Seniors in Action. See, you're gonna exercise your mind. You're gonna express yourself. So we meet once a month, we have a TED Talk, we have a moderator. It's amazing to see this idea become a reality. Well, that was great. You know, you're never too old to express yourself. And with West Hollywood, you're never too old to get involved.
In addition to Seniors in Action, the city offers a variety of Be Well WeHo programming to enhance the connection, health, and well-being of our older adults, such as our Making My Smartphone Work For Me workshop, our evidence-based UCLA memory training workshops, and our mindfulness series.
I always wanted to bring my ideas, what I think would be better for the community. Whether it is making suggestions to our recreation division for new activities, sharing information with everyone I know to tell them about affordable housing options, transportations, or talking with others about lectures and classes I have taken through the city, I am happy, be deeply involved, and do what needs to be done.
Beyond creating programming that enhances the daily lives of our older adults, the Aging in Place, Aging in Community Initiative provides the infrastructure to allow the city to be flexible and respond to evolving community needs. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the city increased legal services, rental assistance, and food resources, and we had to get creative. In the city's effort to address the increasingly challenging needs of our quarantined older adults and keep them safe, our contracted transit drivers stepped up to help deliver food and meals.
My mother is one of the reasons I moved to this beautiful city of West Hollywood. She lives in one of the affordable housing units for seniors. During COVID-19, many of our seniors were scared to go out. A lot of them weren't allowed to go out. So we started delivering the meals that they would pick up from the park to them. We delivered probably over 37,000 meals. It was a lot of meals, and we did that Monday through Friday. I love doing my job. My job is helping the community. And this is where I live, this is where I want to grow old, and I'm seeing so many wonderful things for our elderly here.
Our city policies and programs are community-driven and data-driven. The West Hollywood pilot for guaranteed income, the first guaranteed income pilot in the country for older adults living on a low income, is supported by data from the California Master Plan for Aging, the city's most recent community study, and the Elder Economic Security Index, which highlight the challenges of poverty and homelessness faced by a growing number of older adults. The West Hollywood Aging in Place, Aging in Community Initiative is part of our deep commitment to meeting the evolving needs of our aging population. Our West Hollywood older adults are vitally important to our community, and we'll continue to do all we can to serve and support them.
Thank you. As you heard, the city is deeply committed to our older adults, and we are deeply grateful to all of the individual and agency partners, some of whom have joined us this evening, for their dedication to making West Hollywood a more age-friendly community. We are also truly appreciative of the SCAN Foundation for this recognition, and it's my honor to introduce Sarita Mohanty, President and CEO of the SCAN Foundation, and Erin Westfall, SCAN's Program Officer. Please come up to the podium.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and for the City of West Hollywood council members. Congratulations. This is truly our pleasure, our honor to be able to present this award to you today. I am with the SCAN Foundation. I serve as the president and CEO. Erin Westfall is one of our lead program officers for the foundation, and we are truly committed to improving the lives, transforming the lives of older adults so that they can age in place with dignity and independence. And, you know, I really like to highlight the fact that we know that the population is getting older. States are now more than ever seeing the needs of older adults, which is so important. We know that when a state has a comprehensive plan for aging, everyone benefits. And you referenced the master plan for aging in your talk, Mayor. And it's this is in 2020 we saw our governor Gavin Newsom commission this master plan for aging, and it was officially released in 2021, and the implementation efforts have begun. Part of these efforts were the importance of local implementation for the master plans and having these master plan local playbooks in cities and counties. So, and these local implementations are really the key efforts. I mean, key components to building a California that supports everyone as they age. And there are really 7 plays that we saw that support building communities for all ages. It's engaging local leaders. It's exploring data. It's reviewing existing local aging models. It's selecting initiatives that are local, that are really need to be implemented. Building an action plan. Evaluating implementation. So evaluation being very key, and staying connected. And the SCAN Foundation, this 2022 Innovation Award really focuses on the local implementation efforts. And we are beyond impressed, really. I mean, when we learned about the City of West Hollywood's deep commitment to older adults and the steps that you have all taken, even ahead of the state, to be perfectly frank, to implement a comprehensive, data-driven plan that meets the needs of older adults. The city's engagement with residents through surveys, community meetings, active committees is a model. It's really a model that shows how to design and implement a community solution with the community. And these 10 domains of livability that you saw in the video in the Age in Place Aging Community Initiative highlights your commitment. From ensuring affordable housing, providing extensive transportation, to the first guaranteed income program for older adults. The City of West Hollywood, again, is a leader, as an example of how all cities should support older adults of today and tomorrow. We are going to have more older adults than children in this country by 2030. So it's a reminder, we are all aging. And so it is my honor, my privilege to present the 2022 Innovation Award to the City of West Hollywood for your Aging in Place, Aging in Community initiative. Thank you very much.
Will my colleagues join me? Thank you so much. And now we will move to public comment. The City Council values your comments. However, pursuant to the Brown Act, Council cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. The public comment period is limited to 20 minutes, with 2 minutes allotted for each speaker. This public comment period is to address the City Council on consent calendar items, other agenda items if the member of the public cannot be present at the time that the item is considered, or items of general interest within the jurisdiction of the City Council. Another period is also reserved for general comment later in the meeting for those who could not be heard at this time. Public hearing testimony, well, we don't have a public hearing, will only be taken during that hearing. So we will begin with Dr. Jim Jensvold.
Well, I'm here to speak on item 2N. So, my name is Jim Jensvold. I live in Los Angeles, but I'm the president of Democrats for the Protection of Animals, which is a chartered club of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, and which has actually quite a few members that are residents of West Hollywood. Our membership has voted to support the concept of the prohibition of glue traps for these reasons. As far as I understand it, it's just glue traps and similar type of animal traps that are being considered. Not all traps are being considered, but glue traps are particularly cruel. They don't kill the animal, they trap them until the animal dies of starvation, dehydration, or suffocation, perhaps. Glue traps are indiscriminate. They may be intended for rodents, but they catch. And if you really want to, you can go on, do an internet search and look for images of birds and bats and rabbits and cats and squirrels and all sorts of animals that end up in these traps and can die. My interest in glue traps actually started when Jenny and I rescued a bird, a native songbird, from a trap that was intended for rodents. And we took it to a rehab center. And it should be noted that even with the intended victim, rats, the Centers for Disease Control's, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Dr. Jennifer Conrad, please.
Good evening, City Council members, Mayor. I have a special love for West Hollywood because 20 years ago, I came here and asked West Hollywood to ban the declawing of cats. And West Hollywood did it. And since then, they started a movement. And New York has banned declawing. I was just in Maryland, they banned declawing. Almost all of Canada has banned declawing, as well as many other places. And it's because of West Hollywood doing it first. And for this reason, I am asking you, this tiny but very mighty city, please ban the declawing, please ban the glue traps. Glue traps are cruel. I'm a veterinarian. They are the cruelest way to die. They're like little La Brea tar pits. These animals walk in, they get stuck, then another animal sees a stuck animal and tries to eat it, and therefore it gets stuck. This is not the best of humanity. This is the worst of humanity. We know better, we can do better. I really hope that you will consider this seriously, because you will start a revolution and you will save many, many animals. So I hope you'll do it, because there's no reason for us to continue killing animals this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Conrad. Rick Watts, to be followed by Ms. Tiger. Rick Watts.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and I want to thank you for adding Michael Arrigo to the closing in memoriam motions for this evening. Michael, for folks who don't know, Michael Arrigo was a longtime colleague and member of the Disabilities Advisory Board and advocate for persons with disabilities. Despite or even because of his many, many disabilities, ranging from Parkinson's to functional blindness and so forth, Michael never stopped trying to advocate for persons with disabilities. And for folks that do know him, that knew him, you would never find a more gentle soul, despite everything that he was going through in his own health. He will be missed dearly, and So yes, thank you for adding him to the tonight's closing motion. In my capacity as chair of the Disabilities Advisory Board, I would also like to remind everyone that this being Disabilities Awareness Month, Michael's banner will be hanging on the street along with those of other winners of our past Disabilities Awards. And along with that function of the month, our health screening event will be over at Plummer Park on October 20th, and I strongly encourage folks to get their COVID boosters and their flu shots, and then we will be having our online meeting on the 28th. So you can view it through the city website. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Ms. Tiger, to be followed by Victor Omochenko.
Good evening. I'd like to begin by saying to Shane that we love you and support you. I think everybody, especially LGBTQ plus folks sitting in this room, knows what it's like to be erased and knows what it feels like to not be heard, especially in what should be a safe place as today. I wanted to comment tonight on moving Councilmember Erickson moved item 6B pertaining to the commission to consent, and we were not fully heard. I serve as the co-chair of the advisory board, and there were many items that we wanted included, and I'm really surprised that, it was, if you look at different meetings, we're aware that Councilmember Horvath, Councilmember Meister, did not really fully support the LGBTQ Commission as it was presented. But what I'm surprised tonight is that you, Councilmember D'Amico, allowed this to go to consent, as well as you, Councilmember Shine, both being members of the LGBTQ plus community, and you, Councilmember Erickson, knowing that there were items that were very important to us, such as the RFP review and the contract reviewing. And I don't see that in the duties. And to me, this is another example of not being heard, being silenced, and just moving something along to consent when you know there's plenty of conversations that need to take place. And, I'm just very disappointed to see that. I thank you, Councilmember D'Amico, for bringing this to the city, but it's nothing more than a glorified advisory board. And anybody who can read between the lines knows that. No disrespect, but as a member of my community, I had to say it. It's really unfortunate. Thank you.
Victor Omochenko, to be followed by Manny Rodriguez.
Oh, excuse me. My name is Victor Omochenko, and I just have to follow up, and I'm a longtime resident of West Hollywood, and I have to follow up with what Ms. Tiger had said. I spent a lot of time looking on some items. Now, my concerns don't rise to the level of the violence against what Shane Ellis experienced, but I wanted to give you comments about 2 consent items, as well as the 2 items that you put from unfinished business, the Laurel House and the extension of the entitlements. So I beg your indulgence if I could be given a total of 3 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and say that the Rincon study that you are increasing $100,000 for, apparently you will get the results of that contract by 2024, but the housing element is supposed to cover 2021 to 2029. So we're going to be 4 years into the years of the housing element, and we're not going to have the results of this additional $100,000 study until possibly the end of 2024. I'm very concerned about that, and now I'd like to go to 6A, which is your extension of these entitlements. Thank you for looking at that. The 18-month, the 12-month, the staff report would be much improved if we as citizens could know the definition of what 2/3 of a mixed project being residential means. I would love to see a list. Then, sitting as a member of the West Hollywood Bicycle Coalition, and I know you had a tour of the infrastructure, years ago when that Melrose Triangle project was approved, we were promised a bike lane along that southern stretch of Santa Monica Boulevard, across from the Troubadour, across from Dantana's, and it is still not there. That bike lane is not going to be in the hole in the ground. Let's see when that is finally finished. But we would like to see a bike lane along that section of Santa Monica Boulevard. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is Laurel House. Thank you so much for looking at readaptively reusing it, to look into making it useful to the community. But I just wanted for the record to say that may I continue for 1 minute? As now I'm putting my hat on as a West Hollywood Preservation Alliance board member, the staff report indicated that the first floor of Laurel House is now slated for an art gallery and community gathering place. But at the same time, the attachment A and attachment B talk about a museum, a history of the house or of our film history, or another museum. It looks like there's going to be 5 gallery rooms in that renovated Laurel House once that project is finished. Well, of those gallery rooms, couldn't one of them be devoted to a history of the house or the history of the film industry or a history of our city of West Hollywood? And the Carriage House you're looking at as a potential reading room and maybe city archive. Maybe there could be rooms set aside for some of the cultural and historic and artistic nonprofit organizations that are in our city that need some of that kind of space, whether it be in the Carriage House or in the larger Laurel House. And the West Hollywood Preservation Alliance at this time recommends that it be renamed the Elsie Weissman House. So thank you for your indulgence for the extra time.
Thank you, Victor. Manny Rodriguez, to be followed by Steve Martin.
Hello, City Council. Manny Rodriguez, West Hollywood. It seems a little more than remarkable that this proposal for 1343 Laurel is being offered in the middle of a housing crisis. So if you believe in the housing crisis, this use doesn't align with that view. For decades before this property was donated to the city, people have always lived at 1343 Laurel without prejudice to profession or artistic ability. The best plan for this city-owned property still remains the original plan of 15 years ago. 42 sustainable, affordable units in the back, a restored main house for the community, and the creation of parking where now there is none. This is not to say that subsidized living arrangements and workspace for artists is not a worthwhile idea, but maybe in a different place or at a different time. 1343 Laurel is government-owned property, and for 15 years it has not served the community in any beneficial way. It's time to take this valuable piece of land seriously. So if you believe in the housing crisis, you can't believe in this proposal before you. Thank you.
Steve Martin, to be followed by Adam Darvish.
Steve Martin, West Hollywood, and apropos to some of the issues that came forward tonight, I never drank the Kool-Aid in regard to Sheriff Villanueva. I never thought he was a progressive. And one of the first acts he did when he got in office was to try and reinstate one of his volunteers who was a former deputy who'd been suspended for domestic violence. And not just any kind of domestic violence, a domestic violence against a female deputy that he was dating. So when you go to the polls, don't forget that. The other thing is the issue of aging in place. And I have proposed in my city council campaign that we expand on the program that we have now and extend it to 1 or 2% of the most needy people in West Hollywood. That would probably be, it's going to be an expensive project, but we're losing, or potentially losing, a large number of people who have disabilities and are seniors because their rents are pushing up against the limits of their Social Security income. And $500 or $600 a month could help keep the lights on, something in the pantry, and maybe even some cat food for the cat. We really need to make sure that we're providing places for people to stay here, particularly since many of these people were here for the founding of the city and have played such an important role in our community. And lastly, 1343 Laurel was given to us, the community, to preserve it. And the city spent years trying to demolish it. And we wound up having to pay $400,000 to the people who wanted to preserve that project because the city had gone off in the wrong direction. So, you know, we do have a housing crisis, and we need to look at things like Airbnb and extended stays where we have lost scores, if not hundreds of units, and really look at preserving this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Adam Darvish, to be followed by Nicole Nash.
Thank you, Mayor Meister, Mayor Pro Tem Shine, and council and staff. Madam Darvish, a resident. I'm here tonight in support of item number 2N, as Mayor Meister's item regarding glue traps that was already brought forward and details were provided. Such a cruel way to kill animals. I myself walk a lot daily, and I see squirrels also getting either smashed on the streets, not in West Hollywood, thankfully, in Beverly Hills, and also bleeding, which means that they just ate poison. So I'm hoping that our city will continue to take this as a sort of leading pioneer to solve this issue for our animals that have the right to live in every city, not just West Hollywood. So thank you so much for this item. Hopefully we can ban the sales and use of glue traps. And also in support of Mayor Pro Tem Shine for item, I believe it's 2Q, in support of Iranian woman rising to the occasion one more time, although they have been for 40 years. I've talked about this. My sisters and my mother live in Iran still. I just met them last month in Istanbul, Turkey, because I haven't been back there in fear of just some history that I've shared before. My dad being a political prisoner and tortured, and a lot of family dynamics and history there. But I'm so proud of the Iranian woman, and they truly deserve the best award of just the honor from everyone for putting up with such cruelty and not having the right to speak out. And also Iranian men, but more so women, they have half of the right of a man. I've talked about that. My dad passed away, and my sisters only got half of what was in the will that I had to deal with. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And I know they need global support from all women and all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Nicole Nash, to be followed by Lucky Alexander. Lucky left. Keely Field, to be followed by Jackie Steele.
Thank you, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. I just wanted to say that I'm very grateful that we had the rollout of the Test My Drink cards. However, there are residents and business owners in the city that don't know where to get them. Luckily, they've been finding me on social media, but I think that it's important, now that people know they exist, they don't know where they can get them. And I realize that we're going to have another rollout coming up soon, but there are literally business owners and people that have reached out that want to get them to their customers. And I don't think that that should be something they have to go ask a board member how to do. So I just feel like that needs to be promoted more, because I know we have many more that were purchased that we haven't handed out. We have people literally in hair salons up in Salon Republic on Sunset Boulevard that are survivors of this. So we literally have people in hair salons that have customers in this city that are residents that have been drugged in this city and assaulted in this city, and we need to make these test cards readily available. I also want to back up Shane, who spoke earlier, who also spoke at the security meeting, as a survivor of assault and someone who's had to deal directly with police after a police report. It is near impossible to get a business owner and the video footage that you look at, even though there may be some of it on tape, to actually work with you. And I thought Shane had the benefit of knowing people on this city council who would help with his case, because let's be real, at our safety meeting on August 22nd, there were members of this council that said that they would be getting reports from the sheriff. Shane's not going away, I'm not going away, and the fact that I have now spoken to over 37, yes, 37 survivors of people who have been drugged in this city and assaulted, this shouldn't be this difficult to actually have the sheriff follow through on his report. Someone died and committed suicide as a result of what happened to them as well, and Shane told the sheriffs that, and they didn't even call them. So now we've lost a life. I don't want there to be another one. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Keely. Jackie Steele.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Meister. First, I want to commend the LGBTQ Board and staff for the updates on the Rainbow Key Awards. That looks fantastic. I want to thank the city for sponsoring the City One Youth event again this year, along with the LGBTQ Plus Board, and also, in particular, Councilmember Erickson for sponsoring and I believe increasing the amount for the Unique Women's Coalition Transgiving Dinner, so thank you for that. I really support Mayor Meister's item on the prohibition of glue traps, so thank you, Mayor, for bringing that. Regarding the LGBTQ Commission, sadly, I do have to agree. There was a lot of work that needed to be, maybe not a lot actually, just work that needed to be done. There's a few things that weren't included. RFPs and contracts were not included. They were part of the original conversation. I have emails, I have timestamps, I have links to meetings, anything you want, I am proud to give it to you, and I will give anyone my email with that information. That was always included. It has been removed since Councilmember D'Amico brought it up. It has been removed, and I don't know why. Other commissions have this under their duty and purview. This city is over 40% LGBTQ+. If we don't have access to contracts, if we don't have access to who receives funding in this city, we have no power, and everybody knows that. So although it's great that we have the commission, and I can't thank Councilmember D'Amico enough, there's work that needs to be done. We need equity. You only have equity when you have access. That is how equity works. And it's not just sitting on a dais, it's allowing the community to have a voice in these things. In regard to Shane, I just want to applaud every single community member that spoke up tonight. You know, it's amazing, this little city, as much as we all disagree on all kinds of things, when community steps up in that way, it's really beautiful and a reminder of what we can do. I've been involved in Shane's situation since the morning after, when I got a call that he could not receive PEP and PrEP, and I got a call to bring it to the hospital, okay? That is how long this has been going on. The Ed Buck situation got very loud and very loud and very nasty. I have sent council several emails saying it's going to get loud, it's going to get nasty. The bar with the second highest amount of drink spiking sexual assault related assaults does not have the strips. I was told September 1st they would be handed out again at the end of the month. I offered to do it myself, as did Keely. It's still not done, and it's October 3rd. That is every single assault that could have been prevented in a 1 month time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Do we have any members of the public on remote?
Yes,
Zoom?
we do.
Yes, Mayor, we have 2 members of the public. Our first speaker on Zoom is Kevin Burton, to be followed by Queen Chella Demir. Kevin, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good evening, Council. I'm Kevin Burton, a resident of West Hollywood, and I'm with the West Hollywood Bicycle Coalition. I'm speaking tonight on item 6A, an ordinance adopting a time limit extension for certain planning entitlements, plan checks, and building permits. And we are not opposing this item, but have a request of council related to a project that's adversely affected by the extension to one major development, that is the Melrose Triangle project. And for a number of years, bicycle lanes have been proposed to fill the gap in the bike lane network between Doheny and Oldmont Drive. I first went to the Planning Commission, 2014, spoke on this. Council directed that green lanes be installed on both sides of Santa Monica Boulevard in 2019, and specifically that they should go ahead independent of the Melrose Triangle project. The fiscal year 22 mid-year budget update you received in February, however, in the work plan, those bike lanes are put on hold pending the adjacent Melrose Triangle project. So we would request that council decouple that bike lane project from the Melrose Triangle development as directed by council in 2019, and move forward with implementation of those bike lanes, either the existing plan or a new update to the plan that council will consider in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Our next speaker on Zoom is Queen Chella Demir. Queen, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Queen Chella, please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I am Queen Taylor Demure. I am the president of Unique Women's Coalition. Item 2.0. First of all, I'd like to just say thank you in advance for just the energies and the continued support of this event, this annual event that really helps reduce anxiety for trans and non-binary siblings during the holiday season. But I also, just listening to the meeting thus far, I just want to say to Shane personally, like, we stand with you and we are here with you in solidarity. But as someone who is spending time, first and foremost, I'm also an executive member of the Connie Norman Transgender Empowerment Center on Martell. And as someone that is trying to promote safety and awareness for our trans and non-binary siblings of all ages, we want West Hollywood to stand for safety, for affirming, and for a place where we could totally be our whole self. And so to hear what's happened to Shane and the forces and the agencies involved having dropped the ball in terms of follow-up and resolve, that really scares me, because I am trying to promote West Hollywood as a place that is safe for trans and non-binary people, to be able to play, to be able to work, attend events, and especially the club. And so I just want to make sure that there's some energy spent into making sure that there is some follow-up, there is some process that helps us feel safe and keeps us safe. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you. Good night.
Mayor, that was our last speaker on Zoom for public comment.
Thank you. And Madam City Clerk, do you have some position slips?
I have one citizen position slip from Victor Omolchenko in support of item 2, M as in Mary, the National Arts and Humanities Month.
Thank you very much. And if we have no more public speakers, we will go on to council member comments and attendance reports. Councilmember Erickson, would you like to begin?
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. I want to thank everyone that's come out tonight. In terms of meetings I've attended, I attended the monkeypox COVID telebriefing for elected officials, the Bi-Visibility event in Plummer Park. Thank you to everyone that put that on and helped organize. The Community Preparedness Seminar here in the Chambers. Thank you to our Public and Community Safety Division. A couple of weeks ago, I was able to present the 75th, a proclamation to the Actor Studio on their 75th anniversary at the Academy Museum to Barbara Bain, who is a longtime resident here, but the Actor Studio is right up there in Hart Park. So it was nice to do it on the main stage of the David Geffen Theater there at the new amazing Academy Award Museum. I hope you all check it out. I attended along with my colleague, Councilmember D'Amico, the bike infrastructure tour. That was quite fun. Victor, I wish you were there with us. You would have had a lot of time, a good time. We are almost hit by a car a couple of times, so tells you we still have work to do, especially on Willoughby. I attended the Contract Cities Ledge Committee meeting. I attended the Contract Cities Fall Education Summit, and then the Los Angeles Equality Awards. And I want to thank my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Shine, for hosting the Candlelight Vigil for women in Iran. And I'm sure she'll be speaking more about that, but I want to thank her for putting that on in our park and for all the work that you did for that event. I want to thank my colleagues for items on the agenda. Item 2.0 regarding the Unique Women's Coalition event. Thank you, Mayor, for item 2N. I'm a proud member of the Democrats for Protection of Animals. Jim, I didn't realize you were so tall in person, but it's nice to see you in the flesh instead of on Zoom. Thank you for bringing forth that item, Mayor. I agree. And then additionally, I want to thank my colleague for item 2Q that she did as well. A couple of upcoming events. On October 11th, you have the next Human Rights Speaker Series event, Queers Across the Years, right here at 7 p.m. in the Chambers. I'm addicted to Ciclavia now, so I'm going later next week to the one in Echo Park and Little Tokyo and Chinatown. So if anyone wants to come on down, we'll go. My next Plummer Park event is this Saturday at 10 a.m. on the Vista Lawn. And then just general comments. I believe things happen for a reason. Last night we were reminded to give comments on the nighttime safety meeting that I believe Ms. Field talked about, and I still yet again ask the same question of the Sheriff's Department, saying I still have yet to get an answer, and the answer I'm getting is a non-answer about Shane's case. People refuse to give the council any answers about what's going on. And Shane, I just want to let you know that we all hopefully stand here with you. I do as well. I'm sorry but I am glad that you were able to take your full time and share your story, and that we have a lot of work to do. The fact that the testing strips are still not getting out, we would be great to figure out when that's happening next. I still would like an answer. The answer I'm getting from the Sheriff's Department is they can't tell us because it's confidential regarding people's cases. So Shane tells me a lot about it. I don't want to air his grievances in public because I want him to speak for himself. But Shane, we're trying to do all that we can. I'm happy to do more. And I believe that we have a duty to do everything we can to anyone that comes out to our bars and nightclubs every night here in the city. Additionally, I want to thank the members who came out in support and to be here for Domestic Violence and Intimate Partner Awareness Month. I want to say a special thank you to MJ and Renee for I Remember Nicole. I remember when I was city staff and we got that to show right up here, and so it's nice to see how much progress you've made and continue to make and fight for. Additionally, I want to thank city staff for the in-road lighting. However, we are still facing a backlog of things that need to be done, so please order more and now, because I have a feeling these things are going to break again, and we can't wait for large traffic corridors to not have their appropriate lighting when we want to make sure our pedestrians are safe. We received a public comment from an individual named Benito today about the trees overlooking Kings Road Park and getting those trimmed, so it'd be great if staff could follow up with that individual. It seems like there's an issue going on. I want to thank Rick Watts for talking about Disabilities Awareness Month, and special shout out to Yola, who always reminds me of all the work that we have to do for our disabled advocates here in the community, and for the DAB for all they're doing. Additionally, if we could get more traffic enforcement on speeding on Fountain, it's a daily thing that continues. One day we'll hopefully have a different way of Fountain helping through our city and our neighborhoods. But right now we're seeing people almost get hit by cars, and we need to do all we can. And then my last two items, I hope everyone had a good Rosh Hashanah. I want to wish everyone a safe Yom Kippur, and I cannot thank Mayor Pro Tem Shine enough for all that she is doing to raise awareness on these issues that are facing community members in Iran right now. We have an individual on this dais that serves with great pride for many of us, and thank you for being that representation for people that they need to see in the world, especially today. It made me it brought me immense joy to see you lead last week, and you lead all the time, but it was really great to see you up there, so thank you for all that you're doing for our community.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple quick things to say. The first is regarding 4B, the Laurel House feasibility study update. You know, one of the main things that brought me to this city council was the sort of backhanded dealings of the city council at the time when the Laurel House was turned over to the city. And I want to thank Manny for raising the question of housing, because you may not remember, Mr. Rodriguez, but it was two-time loser John Heilman who used Aline Winderman and the Ellis Act to remove actual residents from the Laurel House. The city of West Hollywood used the Ellis Act to get rid of residents. Let me say that again. John Heilman and Aline Winderman used the Ellis Act, the same act that evicts residents from their housing all over town. The city did that and evicted those residents. And the project and its shady details went all the way to the California Supreme Court and lost. And the city spent $1 million, $1 million, trying to convince the Supreme Court that evicting tenants and making decisions on city property without asking the community was the right thing to do. And they lost. So not only did the city and that boneheaded city council at the time, led by John Heilman, evict 10 residents, but we lost $1 million. So the fact that we are scaling this back, listening to our community, have studied this with a feasibility study, are trying to provide a place of relaxation and art making in our community is not inconsistent with our values. What is inconsistent with our values is the city using the Ellis Act to evict residents. So I like that you're trying to encourage us to build housing, and I think the city's commitment to building the required amount of housing around town in the next 10 years will happen, but selectively choosing a site that the city purposely evicted residents from and pretending that didn't happen, to me, doesn't really solve or even begin to solve talking about the housing problem. I would also say that what will likely come out of this Laurel House in the future is the very thing that will draw more residents to our community. You know, we have always said that there are ways in which our community supports people who invent the world and invent themselves. And having a place that allows people to do that you don't have to spend $20 to get into a bar and have a drink, you don't have to spend $60 on a steak, you don't have to spend $3,500 on a membership, but you can come to a community location and invent yourself and invent the world. That's what the Laurel House will provide. And there will be plenty of other places to build those 3,500 units that the RHNA requires. So I wanted to really thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, for raising why that's not becoming housing. Because the California Supreme Court told our city that we did it wrong. That's why it's not becoming housing.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Shine.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to add a little bit to the Laurel House discussion. It actually is going to have housing included because there will be artists and residents that will be housed at Laurel House. Since our last meeting, I attended the Bi-Visibility event at Plummer Park. I did the bike infrastructure tour with the Weho Bike Coalition with Councilmember Lindsay Horvath. We had a great time. The Iranian American Women's Foundation visual. Thank you to my colleagues, Councilmembers Erickson and D'Amico, for coming out to support, as well as the board members and commissioners who also came out to support, and all the residents and community that did as well. I attended the California Contract Cities Fall Summit this past weekend in Lake Arrowhead, and I spoke on a panel about emergency operating plans that the city has. I'd like to ask I think a lot has been said about Shane. We've asked all the questions. I will repeat everything that Councilmember Erickson said, and I want to thank Shane for coming out and speaking this evening. And I would like to know when, City Manager, we are going to get the status of the feasibility study for us to form our own police department. When is that going to come to council? And I would also like to know if we can get a plan in place to let businesses and residents know that they can request to test my drink cards from City Hall. That would be great. With respect to the LGBTQ Commission item 6B, I would like to comment and make sure that the purview of this commission includes the RFP and contract review, which will then come as a recommendation to City Council for a final decision. I do believe that is an important role, and it was my understanding that within the purview, this was going to happen, but if community is not, if community is reading it and interpreting it as that needing to be spelled out, I think it should be. So if my colleagues agree, City Attorney, it would be good to add that specific language.
Yep. Why don't we just pull it?
Or we could pull it and talk about it too.
Let's do that.
Okay.
So I can partially answer that now if you want to do that. The item does give the proposed duties for the LGBTQ plus commission the ability to review funding needs for funds or RFPs or contracts related to their purview. It doesn't state that in the item or in their purview because it doesn't in any of the commissions. All the boards and commissions, it doesn't state that they review contracts. I think the only one that does is public safety with the sheriff's contracts. But they would have that ability for things that are directly related to the LGBT community.
Isn't that item D in the staff report?
It may be A.
It's A. It's A.
That's what I interpreted too, which is why I sent it to consent, understanding that that's why it wasn't specifically on there. So since the Public Safety Commission specifically says that, is that right? The purview specifically says that for the Public Safety Commission?
It does, but there's only one contract, the sheriff's contract. So that one's a little easier to state what the contract is. In this case, it would be contracts related to their purview, but without knowing what those are, we could end up with
Because there's going to be multiple contracts. I see what you're saying.
Written in a broader way to be a statement of purview. Evaluate and make recommendations to the City Council on service and funding needs and potential service gap impacting the LGBTQ plus community and related to the LGBTQ plus and related to LGBTQ plus related city grants and social services. It's a mouthful. I had trouble even saying it.
So then on the record, what I'm hearing is the RFP and contract will be going to the commission under what the broader purview says. Is that correct?
Yes, I think it's hard to list every type of contract that would come before the commission because it's such a broader scope compared to something like the Public Safety Commission, where they look at one contract.
I think the board members are mostly concerned with all of the contracts, but specifically with West Hollywood Pride. I think that's what this conversation is about.
And there's other bullet points related to Pride specifically listed later in the purview.
Yes. So as long as the RFP for Pride will be going to the commission, and that's the intent of having that in there, I think we're good. But if there is an ambiguity, I think the board is concerned that if it doesn't specifically spell that out, then the WeHo Pride RFP and contract will not go to the commission. It will get bypassed and go straight to council.
So D says review and provide recommendations to the city staff and or city council on the city's annual Pride celebration. So it's broader than just talking about.
That's what I thought too when I read it. Okay, so then that will be done. The commission will get the RFP and the contract review and give input, and then it'll come to council under the way it's written. I want to wish our Filipino residents and community a happy Filipino American History Month. I want to thank the mayor for bringing forward item 2N, looking to ban glue traps in the city. And thank you to my colleagues for supporting items 2P, the co-sponsorship of Raha International. I ran out of the closet, the Changemakers Edition event, which is on October 22nd in Council Chambers. Raha International is an Iranian LGBTQ nonprofit that was formed a couple of years ago, and it'll be great. I believe this is going to be their first event that we are co-sponsoring, and it's very apropos that the next thing I'm going to thank my colleagues for is support of item 2Q, a resolution supporting the current protests in the Islamic Republic of Iran regarding women's equality and the right for people to peacefully exercise freedom of expression, assembly, and association. Starting this evening through October 6th, our City Hall will be lit in red, white, and green in solidarity with the women of Iran fighting for their freedom and human rights. As many of you may know, and for those that don't, a few weeks ago, a young 22-year-old Kurdish woman named Mahsa Amini was arrested by the morality police, and there were reports that she was beaten and died as a result of her arrest. And the arrest was because she was not wearing the compulsory hijab properly. And since then, women, allies of women, students, and children have been protesting in the streets of Iran day and night, because for 43 years, the government of Iran has instituted a theocracy and oppression of the Iranian people and oppression of women specifically to such an extreme degree that it's a awful, horrific human rights issue. And the people of Iran, which include many Muslims, I am Muslim, and the Islamic government does not represent the Muslim faith. They have distorted Islam and done that for their own awful, brutal, disgusting greed. The people of Iran have been protesting in the streets day and night. Women have been using their bodies as shields. They don't have guns. They don't have anything to fight with except for their courage. And this courage they are using to fight for their freedom. And they're being killed and murdered every day by this regime. Last night at Sharif University, the regime went into this university and started shooting students. They did this because they want to quash this uprising. They want to remain in power, and they want to instill fear in the hearts of the Iranian people who want freedom. Faculty was shielding students, and they were killed. The internet has been shut down by this government since the protests began, so that word about their violent, brutal acts and murder doesn't get out. And around the country, people have been holding vigils and protests in solidarity with the people of Iran. I want to thank everyone who has shared on social media about what is happening, because by sharing and speaking up in solidarity with the Iranian people and with us, that act and that news will get back to the people of Iran, and it will give them more courage to keep fighting for freedom. So I ask all of you 3 things. First, if you're friends with an Iranian American person, please give them a call. This is a very, very traumatic time for all of us. And ask, how are you doing? Secondly, share the stories that you see on social media.
with the hashtag Masa Amini. Keep sharing, keep giving courage to the people of Iran that are fighting for freedom. And third, call your representatives, city council members, state senators, assembly members, and ask them to do everything in their power to make sure that our government speaks up for human rights on this issue, and call local media and ask them to speak up about this, because the media has just been too silent about what's happening, and this is one of the biggest human rights issues that is going on right now. Zan Zendegi Azadi, women, life, freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Horvath.
Thank you, Mayor. First, as I shared at our last meeting, West Hollywood community member and Arts and Cultural Affairs Commissioner Todd Williamson is currently serving as the U.S. State Department's Arts Envoy to Germany, working with the embassies and the consulates in Frankfurt and Stuttgart. And over the next 6 months, he will have a series of exhibitions in Germany, and he also just updated us that he's been asked to be a part of a new project for the Ukrainian embassy in Berlin. This project is a joint effort between 10 artists and is anticipated to take place in late fall or early spring. So I wanted to congratulate Todd and make sure to share that with our community, that his accomplishments are recognized in our community, and we wish you the best of luck, Todd. Thank you for representing us in your efforts. I wanted to wish a belated Shana Tova and an easy fast to all who observe. And I wanted to thank SCAN for their recognition tonight, and especially my commissioner, Barbara Meltzer, who has been a stalwart champion of the Aging in Place, Aging in Community Plan, and aging issues throughout our city. Anyone who knows her knows that this is her life's passion. This is her third act commitment, and she has been completely dedicated to realizing this issue in West Hollywood and beyond. And I just really want to thank her, because I know that the seeds that she planted helped to realize this beautiful plan that we all enjoy in our community. I also participated in the Equality Awards, and congratulate all who were recognized this year. I represented the city at the Cal CCA celebration in San Francisco, and also participated in the Clean Power Alliance Legislative and Regulatory Committee, as well as the Planned Parenthood State of the Agency event that was held recently. I want to congratulate now Vice President John Erickson and his role in that effort, because I am proud that we have a Planned Parenthood here in West Hollywood that provides a full range of comprehensive reproductive health care options, including safe access to abortion right here in our city. And the vision that Planned Parenthood Los Angeles has for our city and our region is one that we should all be proud of. I participated in a recent Metro meeting, and our city had a great collaboration in particular with board member Jackie DuPont Walker, who is a tireless champion for equity and investing in infrastructure for communities who have been overlooked, and I thank her for her leadership. And I also wanted to speak to the comments that were made here tonight regarding the recommendations from the Nightlife safety meeting that we held. I understand from staff that those recommendations will be coming back to us at a meeting in November. So for those who are paying attention to that and interested in the progress, that is when the City Council will be discussing those recommendations. And I too want to stress that if we are telling people the next round of drink spiking strips distribution is in the month of September, that should have happened in September. And so I know we are where we are now, but I think what we're seeing here tonight is yet another demonstration of what accountability and action looks like. And so making sure we have timelines, making sure we're communicating with the public about what we're doing is very important. And so I hope that we'll have a timeline as part of that update, and that we do have the ability to do a further distribution this month in our community. I am particularly happy to see us extend our contract in item 2J with the mental health professional that's paired with our MET team that's housed in our Sheriff's Department and the Department of Mental Health in LA County. The contract that we have with them is very important and has actually set an example for the county. I know that other contract cities are looking at this because of what we did. So thanks to our staff for continuing that contract and making sure we have that resource right here in West Hollywood. And finally, I want to acknowledge, well, two things. First, item 4B, if my colleagues would also agree on Laurel House. I know that there were discussions at ACAC and Historic Preservation, and at least a representative from ACAC, because this facility will be used and programmed by that commission going forward, if they could have representation in the ongoing discussions, and that we consider whatever seismic retrofitting needs to happen to that building before we move into architectural design, so we understand the costs associated with that. Making sure that that's part of our analysis, I think, would be important, so we understand the full financial impact. Now, finally, I also want to acknowledge item 2Q and thank Mayor Pro Tem for bringing this item forward, as I think it reflects the best of who we are in West Hollywood, standing firmly with the people of Iran, especially the women who are fighting for freedom and justice. Attacks on women's fundamental rights, including being able to walk freely with or without a headscarf, are dangerous, lethal, and unjust. The recent attack on Sharif University was spoken about in social media as if they were attacking the Harvard of Iran. And the fact that we aren't all talking about it in the same way as if an attack happened on that university shows us how much more we have to do in terms of our global understanding of these issues. I can only imagine what it means to be an Iranian American in this moment, especially to be a refugee who is seeing this devastation and destruction in your homeland, a place you fled, seeking safety here, knowing that people are in danger. And so tonight, I know that all of us are standing united in solidarity, whether as allies or as witness to what is going on, and declaring that we will do better and do all we can to support a different kind of outcome. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Horvath. My attended SCAG's demographic workshop, the Community Emergency Preparedness Seminar, the U.S. Conference of Mayors Zoom session in Building Resilient Infrastructure, Sanitation District Personnel Committee meeting, the West Side City's COG Special Board meeting on Behavior Crisis and Mental Health Care Services, also the First Responders Children's Foundation event, and I also participated in the bike infrastructure tour with the West Hollywood Bike Coalition, and it was eye-opening, to say the least. I want to thank staff regarding their work on SB 1194, Hernan Molina, Ben Galan, John Kehoe, and our new lobbyist, Sylvia Solis-Shaw. We appreciate all of your efforts with regard to that bill. Regarding consent calendar, I want to thank my colleagues for supporting 2N and More Humane Solutions. I also want to, on item 4B, just mention that Historic Preservation had talked about the naming of Laurel House, and if that's something that is possible for the Historic Preservation to start exploring, if the Historic Preservation Commission can maybe put something forward. I know it's not part of this item, but I would say that if HBC is allowed to pursue that, or public facilities, whichever commission that is, they should look to agendize that for a future meeting. And I am pleased with the direction of Laurel House, and I think that it's really a compromise in terms of providing housing to creative people that we want to bring into our city, or who are already living here and need a more affordable space. It's also still an area where people can come and enjoy the grounds, and hopefully we'll be able to program very enjoyable cultural events and use the property the way that the community asked for it to be used. Regarding item 6A, the time limit extension, I would like to ask the city attorney or the city manager. We had asked them to work on getting their construction fence art around the Melrose Triangle, as it's been sitting there for years now. I would like to see that construction fence art happen a little bit quicker than it's happening. I also would like our planning staff and transportation staff to move forward with the bike lanes that were promised to the community. Just because Melrose Triangle is being delayed, the development doesn't mean that everybody else has to wait for the promises that were made by this council. And I also want to ask the city manager if it might make sense to have some kind of performance bond to make sure that in a year's time that project moves forward, or they have to pay back something to the community. So if you can answer that, if not tonight, then at some point moving forward. I'd like to wish my fellow Jewish community members an easy fast. And I just wanted to mention, too, that it is Hispanic Heritage Month. National Hispanic Heritage Month is observed from September 15th to October 15th. This is an opportunity to celebrate the histories, cultures, and contributions of Hispanic and Latinx Americans. The Hispanic population in Los Angeles County is the county's largest ethnic racial group, and Los Angeles County has the largest Hispanic population of any county in the United States. Thank you, Councilmember Horvath, for presenting to Sylvia Vasquez Lovato in recognition of this important month. I'd also like to talk about item 6B. I know that we will be looking at purview for all of the commissions, and one thing that I would like to suggest looking at is, since our community is over 40% LGBTQ, I would like to see us look at that commission to be primarily residents, comprised of residents, and whether that means that it's 5 appointments that are from the community, from our city, residents of our city, and maybe the 2 at large can be from outside the city, as long as there is a connection to the city. I think it's important, especially since we are changing this board to a commission, that this commission represent residents of this city, just as many of our other commissions, especially because we do have such a large LGBT population in the city, and there should be no problem finding people to qualify for this commission. And lastly...
So, Mayor, I guess I wonder, is that, that seems like that direction should be voted on by the 5 of us. I'm not disagreeing. In fact, I want to vote yes on that, but I think in order, or we need to say that it doesn't belong on consent and have a discussion about it.
Council members, may I jump in? There was a previous item from Councilmember Erickson and Mayor Meister, and a subcommittee was created by the council for me and the city attorney to look at all of our commissions. So this will just be part of that, and it will come back to the council for full consideration, because we'd have to change the municipal code to move that forward. You're welcome.
So we're good. I remembered. I remembered.
I did too, because I thought.
And lastly, I want to apologize to Ivan Shane Nash for my lack of sensitivity. Sometimes my mayor role gets in gets in the way of a motion, and so I would like to invite you to meet with me and as well as the Director of Community Safety at your convenience at City Hall. So I hope that staff will reach out to Ivan and offer that meeting. Okay. And now we will go on to the City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. A few general updates. The vote by mail ballots will be mailed out to voters beginning October 10th, and the drop boxes will be open that day as well. Banners will be installed throughout the city promoting voting, and the vote by mail drop boxes are located at City Hall, the West Hollywood Library, and Plummer Park. The bystander intervention training is continuing. It's being offered to employees of alcohol-serving businesses. The next round of training begins this week and will continue to be offered quarterly. For more information, please contact the city by phone at 323-848-6437 or by email at code@weho.org. The West Hollywood Sheriff's Station is currently taking registration for their Community Academy program, which will occur every Wednesday for 6 weeks at West Hollywood Park from 5 to 8 p.m. beginning October 12th and ending November 16th. This program provides information concerning patrol operations, investigations, and department processes, among other topics. Contact the Community Safety Department at 323-848-6414 or safety@weho.org to sign up. And then also the Los Angeles County Fire Department is taking registration for their Community Emergency Response Team. That's the CERT program, which will occur every Saturday for 3 weeks at West Hollywood Park from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. beginning October 15th and ending October 29th. CERT provides training in emergency management techniques used to help others with immediate life-saving needs if a disaster occurs. Contact our Community Safety Department at 323-848-6414 or safety@weho.org to sign up. And then I'm pleased to share that the new West Hollywood Aquatic and Recreation Center has successfully been certified as LEED Gold by the U.S. Green Building Council. So thank you to Steve Campbell, who led that project, and LPA Architects on that accomplishment. And I think that's it for general. Regarding the en-road lights, we have supply chain issues with a number of things still, and so we are ordering things in bulk, including the en-road lights, and as we get them, we will store them up for replacement for later times. And then Steve Campbell is here in the audience, and he'll look into the trees at Kings Road. And then regarding the test strips, we are doing a second round for the drug spiking test strips this month, towards the end of the month before Halloween. This round will be provided to business owners, our bars and clubs, those type of businesses. The previous round was for patrons of the businesses. We'll also do more communication, so the word is out. And then in addition, at the last council meeting with the social services contract, you all approved a contract that includes our agencies providing those test strips as well. And then we'll also have the block by block and the code enforcement helping in those distributions.
We got a couple of comments from members of the public that bars were declining, or maybe after some hesitation of doing it. I know we didn't make it when we did it was a mandatory, but perhaps you could work with Danny or someone in community safety when that occurs, and maybe give them a friendly call to say that it needs to happen, because as we've heard from our businesses, they don't like being told what to do. So we're saying, please do this, and we would, I'm happy to make it mandatory, but maybe we work with our businesses in the way that they would like us to. to do the right thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll continue to do that. It sounded like from the comments that it happened with that business as well. They are agreeing to it now, but we will continue to work with the businesses.
David, could you also just address the concern about the Rincon Consultants contract going into 2024?
Yeah.
Was that it?
We'll find out. I have a couple of more comments, and hopefully I'll get a text by then to get more details on that. So the nighttime safety, we are planning to, we're getting any feedback from the council and board and commissioners that were part of that discussion. We plan to start going back to those boards and commissions in November and providing an informational item just with the questions and responses, get any additional feedback, and then we'll come back to council. So it may be December. I just want to be clear about that. So we'll shoot for either the second meeting in November or early December to return to council. And then the Melrose Triangle, we are working with them on the fence art, and that should be coming up soon. As far as the bike lane, that is coming to council. That's part of the study that's coming to council in December for the bike lane along Santa Monica. And then for the performance bond, we'll look into it, but there is... December is what I heard, but we can try to see if the Fountain is coming in November. Fountain bike lane in November, December for the study. And then for the performance bond for Melrose Triangle, so there's not a discretionary permit that's we're working on right now, so we'll look into it. I don't know if there's a process for us to do that right now, but we'll certainly look at it. And then, so as far as the Rincon contract, that is just an outside date. We are working on environmental now, so it should be done in early 2023. So you just moved it up a year.
Wow. Amazing.
And the
Thank you,
feasibility,
Victor.
and the feasibility study, David?
I'm sorry?
The feasibility study?
So we are working on the RFP for that right now. We hope to send it out in the next couple of weeks. We'll send it to the council as well so you can see it before it goes out. But we won't come back as an agenda item, but we hope to have responses by the end of the calendar year and be able to come back at that time with a contract for a consultant to do a study.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no other questions of the city manager? Any other comments? Go ahead.
We only have one item on the agenda, but I did want to alert the public that the governor did sign SB 1194 last week, Thursday.
Yeah.
And SB 1194 is a bill authored right here with Mayor Pro Tem Shine and myself asking Senator Ben Allen to take this up to make gender-neutral bathrooms statewide more easier for local municipalities to opt into. And the best part about this bill is that it was passed unanimously through both houses of the state and the assembly. So it's very rare we find common ground in that way, but the very essence of local control. And I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Shine for doing that item together. And I also just want to give a quick shout out to my mentor, but someone, Abby Land, when I became her deputy, who brought that item forward for businesses here that had single stall restrooms. I would not have known we would have done that or what would have become, but I want to thank the governor. I really want to thank Hernan Molina especially because he worked his butt off. I see Yvonne shaking her head to ensure that we had a broad base of coalition support, the Trans Latina Coalition, the LA LGBTQ Center, City of Santa Monica, and many other people.
Equality California.
It's Equality California, and to pass a bill within 1 year and 10 months of being on this council with you at the statewide that sees such change. That's what West Hollywood's all about. So congratulations to the city and especially to my colleagues.
And to clarify, this is for multi-stall gender-neutral bathrooms.
Multi-stall gender-neutral bathrooms.
Okay. So with that, Madam City Clerk, what is the fiscal impact with the addition of items 4B, 5A, 6A, and 6B?
Thank you, Mayor. The fiscal impact on tonight's consent calendar is $299,864 in expenditures, $0 in revenue, and $1,240 in waived fees. And prior to the approval of the consent calendar, I would like to read the titles of the ordinances that were items 6A and 6B.
Please do.
So the urgency ordinance, which will go into effect immediately, is an urgency ordinance of the City of West Hollywood extending the automatic 18-month extension of the time limit set forth in the zoning code for approved discretionary planning entitlements to housing projects expiring through June 2023, and extending the automatic 12-month extension of plan check and permit applications to housing plan checks expiring through June 2023, and declaring the ordinance to be an emergency measure to take effect immediately upon adoption. And the other ordinance is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of West Hollywood, California, adding Chapter 2.70, LGBTQ Commission, to Title II, the Administration and Personnel section of the West Hollywood Municipal Code, establishing and setting rules and duties of the Commission. And with that, we will take a motion on consent.
We have a motion to adopt. Councilmember Erickson, Mayor Pro Tem second. And we have a consent calendar, 5 approved, 0, 5-0. Okay, now we're going to move on to item unfinished business, item 4A, WeHo Pride 2022, post-event report. If staff will introduce themselves and give us a report.
There we go.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. My name is Megan Reith, Event Services Supervisor. Also here this evening are Yvonne Corker, Director of Community Services, Cleo Smith, Event Services Manager, and Jeff Consoletti of JJLA, the city's contracted producer of the inaugural WeHo Pride. We're here this evening to provide a post-event report on the city's inaugural WeHo Pride, which was held this past June, and also to seek council's direction related to negotiating a multi-year agreement with JJLA for future WeHo Pride events. First, some very brief background on how we got here. In April 2021, the City Council directed staff to begin exploratory work related to an inaugural WeHo Pride event. And in August of that year, the city released an RFP seeking event production services. JJLA was awarded the production services contract through that process, and visioning for the inaugural event began in October, and the event programming and format was finalized in February of this year. The following slides will highlight WeHo Pride's primary programming elements and identify some key takeaways that came out of post-event debriefs, including those with the Pride Subcommittee, internally among city staff, impacted external agencies, and community stakeholders. So WeHo Pride programming featured the WeHo Pride LGBTQ Arts Festival, which included 40 days of LGBTQ programming at various locations around the city. With a longer planning window, staff feels we can more fully integrate the LGBTQ Arts Festival into the overarching WeHo Pride brand. Another feature of the inaugural event included WeHo Pride Weekend, June 3, 4, and 5, which included the following elements. The Dyke March, an annual city program which was held at the Robertson Community Stage, which included DJ programming, an awards presentation, and a rally and march. This year's event included a sizable motorcycle contingent and hundreds of marchers. Staff would like to see greater participation in the future and plans to consider additional opportunities for outreach, as well as consider a change to the start time and potentially to the day of the event. Women's Freedom Festival was a co-sponsored event with portions within WeHo Pride footprint that featured emerging LGBTQ and BIPOC women and non-binary musicians, comedians, poets, and activists. Organizers estimate that the Friday night component on the Robertson community stage attracted up to 500 attendees. The Women's Freedom Festival also included a Rainbow Family Day picnic in Plummer Park, which organizers estimate attracted about 100 attendees. Organizers of the Women's Freedom Festival have suggested a different time or day for the event in the future. There was a free WeHo Pride Community Street Fair, which included community group booths, sponsor activations, the Robertson Community Stage with live performances and other entertainment elements on Robertson Boulevard and San Vicente Boulevard. The street fair featured booths from 30 different community groups that applied to participate through the city's application process, and several organizations from the community group application process were also granted blocks of time on the Robertson Community Stage, which was programmed with largely LGBTQ talent when not featuring, largely local LGBTQ talent when not featuring community group performances. The free components of the event received positive feedback from the community members and stakeholders. Staff will continue to work with the producer to streamline the application process and explore improvements to logistics, such as positioning like organizations near one another, re-examining some load-in logistics, and adding food and beverage options to the free areas. Here is a snapshot of the groups selected to participate in the street fair through the city's application process. So in addition to the opportunity to participate in the WeHo Pride Community Street Fair, the city's application process also allowed community groups to request funding in order to produce their own events under the larger umbrella of the WeHo Pride celebrations. Through this process, funding was awarded for 17 co-sponsorships, 10 of which were independent events and 7 of which were activations and/or performances. The independent events included a queer prom, an LGBTQ business mixer, an interactive theatrical performance, among others. More planning time would allow staff additional time to promote this program, as well as afford selected participants a longer window to promote their events and integrate the promotion into the larger WeHo Pride promotional efforts. In total, the city awarded $106,295 in funding to participating community groups, and here is a summary snapshot of the groups that were funded, the amount that was allocated and the activation that they produced. Out Loud Raising Voices, an award-winning ticketed concert highlighting LGBTQ artistry, was held in West Hollywood Park and on the PDC Plaza on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The event attracted nearly 23,000 ticketed attendees and received 750,000 unique views on Twitch over 24 hours. JJLA, the producer of that event, has prepared a debrief report that is included in the staff report as attachment B. The inaugural WeHo Pride Parade was held along Santa Monica Boulevard between Crescent Heights and Robertson Boulevard on Sunday, June 5th. The parade featured 106 entries, including floats, vehicles, marching contingents, comprised of community groups, city businesses, corporate sponsors, and celebrity guests. The inaugural parade attracted thousands of participants and spectators to the city. The parade received lots of positive feedback from city partners and stakeholders. Following the event staff has held internal and external debrief meetings and worked to collect post-event feedback as well as data related to attendance and cost. And so this chart shows the cost to produce WeHo Pride 2022, which was just over $2.7 million as detailed in the report. Visioning and programming for the 2022 event took place over several months, where $1.9 million was allocated. However, as the approved events both evolved and grew, the public safety costs that were required to support the programming also increased. Some examples of areas where the event evolved in a way that added costs were the expansion of the footprint to include Robertson Boulevard, the inclusion of event surveillance equipment, infrastructure related to the KTLA broadcast, and participation of 3 high-profile celebrity guests in the parade. Additionally, on the production side, as the event elements were evolving, so were costs in the marketplace. Costs of materials, labor, trucking, and gas prices all increased nearly 20% over the original estimates that were obtained about 6 months prior. JJLA did secure sponsorships in order to offset some of the production costs related to the event. The city received nearly $234,000 in sponsorship revenue, which can be applied to the production overages. And this concludes the post-event report, and staff and Jeff Consoletti are available to answer any questions you may have. At this time, Jeff would also like to give a brief statement.
Good evening. Well, whether we consider this past year's Pride to be 3 or 40 years in the making, I hope that we can agree that together we created an inaugural celebration for West Hollywood by West Hollywood. I want to begin by extending my gratitude to the council, to city leadership and staff, to the West Hollywood community and its residents for entrusting my team and I with leading this event. Large-scale events require an incredible amount of patience, coordination, and collaboration, and certainly create impacts that we as event producers try to alleviate as much as possible. This past June, we had an opportunity to not only welcome Pride back after the separation of the pandemic, but create that Pride as a special and landmark experience for West Hollywood. And I think we did just that. I humbly appreciate the trust and leadership that has been invested in me and JJLA. As many of you know, my team and I have over a decade of experience leading Pride events, no shortage of those events right here in West Hollywood. This past June stands out as a highlight among those events and work that personally I'm very incredibly proud of. Despite an extraordinarily truncated timeline that admittedly perhaps did not set me up for much success, I think the event was phenomenally successful. Some of those highlights, if you don't mind indulging me, include developing the diverse signature event that became Weho Pride Weekend, that truly became an established event, kicking off Pride Month on a global scale, offering a little bit of something for everyone. We also produced an entertaining and crowd-drawing parade where tens of thousands of people were 3 rows deep along Santa Monica Boulevard, something, in my experience, I've not seen for a first-year event on a brand new weekend for a brand new brand. We integrated the business community with a more focused and communicative approach than has ever been done before. From weekly engagement with the Chamber to the development of the Weho Pride Pass program, these are examples of ways that JJLA went above and beyond what has been asked of us to ensure that we were integrating all aspects of this community. In less than 90 days, we created and sold a major sponsorship program helping to offset some of the cost of production, and engaged with major national brands that equally stand by the city in their commitment to LGBTQ people and the community. The success of that first year really establishes our runway to grow and expand this program for future years. Finally, yes, we continue to develop Out Loud Raising Voices as a flagship concert of the weekend. You know, our mission with Out Loud is to promote a diverse assortment of queer artists for queer audiences in queer communities. There's no better place to call home for this festival than West Hollywood. Tonight, I ask for your support to continue the work that we've started. We've laid a foundation to build a world-class destination Pride that embodies the commitment this city has made to the LGBTQ plus community since its inception. My team and I have the privilege of producing large-scale lifestyle events around the globe. But there's something incredibly special for us to do so right here at home. We honor that work. You can rest assured you have a partner in JJLA that cares deeply about West Hollywood. If that has not been seen these past over 12 years that I've stood here talking to this body in many different forms, then I'm not sure what else I can do. We work tirelessly to create memorable, safe, accessible, inclusionary, and dare I say fun experiences that set a standard for success. Thank you for the exceptional experience the 2022 event afforded me personally and my team. We look forward to the future of this WeHo Pride partnership.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions? Councilmember Erickson?
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Megan, thank you very much for the presentation. In terms of the amount of tickets sold, the impact to our businesses in our city is kind of, we can maybe estimate what it is, but we don't have that dollar amount, right? How many people stayed in our hotels, the economic impact over that weekend. But what I'm trying to get to here say is that while 22,904 people attended the festival throughout the weekend, the amount of people in the streets and in our businesses was much higher, right? Somewhere around that statement, would that be true?
We have not done an economic impact study at this time, and yes, that's the number of tickets sold for Out Loud, but there were a number of free events, including the parade that had tens of thousands of people.
And they would have gone to our businesses, theoretically. You're too detailed, so I know how you're going to answer that question. Never mind. Thank you so much. Yeah, I had the pleasure of working with Meg, so I know how she works. Way back when we were still on Zoom, we were presented with 3 options for Pride, I think it was. I can't remember when that meeting was. And I think the first option gave us like a dollar amount of like $2 million, $2.5 million for it, right?
You're testing my memory here. I recall the meeting in December, and I recall.
Oh, good. We're in December.
I
Okay.
that JJLA did present the council with 3 options for Pride. I would have to look at what the dollar amounts associated with those packages were.
The only reason why I'm bringing it up is that theoretically we were in the ballpark figure. I think if I go back and look at that item, somewhere of what was originally projected, which is why I'm trying to say, like, if we're producing a mass marketing event, a mass Pride event in the way it was, the dollar amount seemed to be there. So woulda, coulda, shoulda, but now we know, and that's just what I wanted to say. And then I had another question written here, but I'm just going to stop because I'm going to scroll for a little.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else you want to add before we go to public comment? Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Ms. Tiger.
Hi, thank you. I recently attended a Pride Subcommittee meeting in which I had expressed, both personally and on behalf of the advisory board, the LGBTQ plus advisory board, that we felt that the RFP process should be something within the purview. What was kind of deflated and conflated this evening was that the purview was pitched to advise and approve, such as the wording in the cultural arts purview. So I know that came up earlier after you had mentioned that further, Councilmember Shine. We had issues. A lot of our issues were not fully reflected in the reports as usual. We also had concerns when it was brought to our attention that the owner of JJLA had made contributions to council member campaigns as well as a fundraiser for Councilmember Horvath. So that was why we were trying to have something that was more transparent, more community-minded. Obviously, most of the people were thinking in the direction of having a nonprofit Pride, and that's probably not going to happen. But within that, we did feel that Pride should be part of the purview, worded advises and approves, such as the Cultural Arts Commission. But we just felt that the conversation needed to be extended further, as well as we did not view a 3-year contract as a short-term contract. We felt that a 1-year contract was short-term, and then put the RFP out going forward, especially in the event we will have a new council member joining this, here in a short few months, and maybe two new council members. And we felt that by extending a long-term contract was not beneficial to people who are coming in on council. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tiger. Are there any other comments remotely?
I have one member from the public in Zoom. I don't know if she wants to speak. She'd signed up. Jackie Steele, if you'd like to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Ready, I think Scott
Scott
Schmidt
Schmidt.
wants to speak.
Yeah,
Maybe
well-
he didn't turn in a speaker slip.
Okay. It fell in between the cracks over here.
I'm here, but if Scott wants to go, that's fine.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, appreciate it. So first and foremost, to go back to the commission piece, again, it was kind of a little bit swept under tonight. We really deserve, as a commission and a new commission, there's no reason that should not be in the purview of the commission moving forward. And to take away that opportunity, even if we provide a one-year contract right now, that's not fair to folks that are coming in. And also this idea that they don't have the breadth of experience. I've also produced events for 20 years. I've also produced parades. We're not affording opportunity. I don't want to produce this event. My point is, we have a wealth of folks that have an opportunity to perform here. And I think, we're saying it's an inaugural event and it was a success and it was a first time parade. West Hollywood has had pride for decades. This has been built off of people working for decades, as has the parade. People knew to come here. People were confused by LA Pride not being in West Hollywood. So let's not act like this isn't a West Hollywood established situation. JJLA and that concert event are new to West Hollywood, as they weren't here obviously last year. And they did an amazing job. The JJLA team does a great job. They're great event producers. There's no doubt about those pieces. But when it comes to the commission, also, Mayor Meister, to say that folks have to be residents of the city, being a member of the LGBTQ plus community does not in fact make you a leader in community or say you're connected in the community space. So please reach out to LGBTQ leaders and have some more robust conversation and dialogue about what that means. There are folks on boards right now that are not connected in community, but they're connected to council. It doesn't benefit us in the big picture and long-term sense. In terms of pride, I love to also see this reduced to a one-year contract. I think if that's where council wants to go, great. That's obviously up to you all. But let's have a one-year contract. There's enough time for JJLA to build a robust event, but we haven't seen anything addressing all of the grassroots community concerns. We haven't heard one thing from staff or JJLA about how we're going to get there. Is there going to be a subcommittee that engages LGBTQ leaders on how we can develop things in that grassroots space? What effort is being made to do that? Furthermore, the women's events got far less attention, far less promotion, and we really have to fight to get them. If JJLA is offered a one-year contract, which again I support, Women's Freedom Festival should be offered the same, and all boards and
Thank you,
commissions
Jackie.
should be
Your time
invited
is
to
up.
all floats and all events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Schmidt.
All right, thank you. So not only did my speaker card fall through the cracks, but I sent an email earlier today to the council@weho.org email, which was used 6 years ago, which apparently wasn't the correct one for public comment, so apologies for that. I'm Scott Schmidt. I'm a resident of West Hollywood. I am here on behalf of Emerald Village West Hollywood, the official cannabis tourism promotion organization for the city, and I'm a Pride goer since 1994. So first, let me thank the council for making WeHo Pride happen. It is a big investment in terms of our budget and our staff time, but it is part of what makes West Hollywood, and our identity as, a shining city on the hill for the LGBT community around the world. I want to thank and congratulate Jeff Consoletti for putting on a great event, and for staff for taking all of our feedback through various surveys and at the Pride Subcommittee meeting and all of that. So thank you for listening, and it's good to see you incorporating many of the recommendations that came during the Pride Subcommittee and along the way. I do have a small request, which if you got my letter was in there, is that with relation to recommendation number 4, which is the sponsorship sales contract for 2023, that we carve out cannabis sponsorships from that contract for now, at least because we don't know what it's going to look like. We haven't had that discussion about cannabis special events. Will there be a consumption zone within the new festival grounds? And that would affect what a sponsorship could go for. You could get a lot more money if you have consumption areas. And so maybe we shouldn't start selling those. And also, likewise, to remember, as happened earlier this year, it was a sponsorship that was sold to another cannabis-related business that resulted in the illicit sales of cannabis inside the festival and the itinerant deliveries in the area around. So we want to avoid that. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all the members out in the community. I want to thank Jeff. I mean, look, I've been in this town a long time, and I've seen what it's like. And look, we all would love to have had a nonprofit being produced, but Jeff has consistently delivered on ridiculously tight timelines, and he produced an event. I think what we can do, and as someone who has done events, the pool is very, very small. So while I understand the RFP process, I think we already know what that outcome is because we've been getting it for 10 plus years with Jeff Consoletti personally. And while, you know, I understand and we've clarified the role of the soon-to-be commission, now advisory board, making recommendations come up to the city council because we are the deciders. It is up to us to decide. And while I appreciate recommendations and the community input, that's what it's there for, it is up to us to make that decision. So while I don't necessarily know if I want to have a finite decision made at that level, I think it can be in conjunction with the subcommittee if it needs to be. I think what's being presented here is fair and equitable. I hear what the community has said regarding the Women's Freedom Festival. I'm completely supportive of providing a multi-year contract to them. I hear 3, right? I'm happy if the council wants to talk 2, but I do think we need to approve a date. I'm happy to enter into that agreement with JJLA. I have seen Jeff work every community meeting and group that we ask him to go to. He will go to the LGBTQ advisory board and he will hear their concerns and it will be better. He had, Cleo, how many days to do it? I mean, 4. It was really, really tight. Jeff, you probably know at the top of your head, but that's what I'm trying to say is that yes, there are criticisms, that's natural, but I believe that Jeff will produce that next level in 2023. We will see it continue to grow. We will see our community groups continue to grow. We had a parade that had 106 entries, and at the highest level when LA Pride did it, wasn't it like 128 or something like that? It was similar. I mean, when we look at the numbers. And I will say, I cannot tell you how many messages I got saying, wait, am I coming to West Hollywood the second weekend or the first weekend? And so the fact that we pulled it off in that way is really critical. So while, and I have the greatest respect for Commissioner Steele. So, you know, while I understand LA Pride doing what they did, Jeff did that for that long. So the reason why it is there is that's because of Jeff. And there was a very stark difference between the 2 events this year. And we had the better one. It was very clear, no shade LA Pride, all the best, love you, thanks very much. But West Hollywood Pride is West Hollywood Pride, and I do trust Jeff to do that in the future. So I'm happy to extend a longer term commitment to the Women's Freedom Festival. I thought that was incredible. I think it's got so many great legs to move forward. It probably won't be on Robertson next year. We'll figure it out where it goes. Maybe it's in the PDC, but the community groups and everything, if we don't have complaints, it wouldn't be West Hollywood, and I'd be really shocked just moving forward but here's the thing that I know that I think we're all here for. All 5 of us, and while we agree on many things, and sometimes not, overwhelmingly agreed that this Pride was a success. With some quirks and kinks, of course, but I think that says a lot. And to, I think, throw on more dramatics to this process is not needed. We need to get down to business. We need to start promoting Pride for what it will be in 2023, and I believe that's with Jeff Consoletti. So I'm not making a motion yet, but I'm just saying where I'm at so my colleagues can do it. And 1 year isn't enough just for someone that produces events. There's no way, shape, in hell that can actually happen, so I won't support a 1-year deal. Sorry, I believe we need to invest in 2 years, and I know Jeff will work with our community there. So that's where I'm at, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Erickson. Mayor Pro Tem Shine?
Yes. So I too agree that the Women's Freedom Festival should be part of this extension for whatever we decide tonight. Before addressing the other stuff, there are things that the Pride Committee had comments and direction on. Some of these things I'm going to ask Jeff to incorporate into our direction into moving forward. I think some of this stuff is things we don't need to necessarily say. More chairs for people to sit down at the Dyke March. I mean, that doesn't need to be said. However, what we overwhelmingly heard about, and some things I want to address, is better marketing for all events, not only out loud. I know that Jeff and I had spoken, and we're going to be adding, I believe, a marketing budget, because that's going to help foster more marketing for all events. Something we also talked about is potentially moving out loud to another weekend, because what we're hearing from the community is that they want a more community-based West Hollywood Pride. So I would like for you to come back to us with a proposal that, instead of just saying, okay, well, let's do the same thing over and over again, with a proposal. I think when we accepted this Pride, we talked about, okay, we're going to do a sort of a small thing now because we were rushed and we were coming out of COVID and the pandemic, and then we thought this would keep growing in a different way. So what I'd like to see is for you to come back and say, okay, well, maybe in the WeHo Pride weekend, this is a thing we'll do. We'll satisfy community's needs in having a more community-based use of the park with something that is not out loud, but all WeHo Pride, and perhaps putting out loud in a separate weekend in a way that gives that success too. I know that LA Pride was doing multiple different events all over LA. There's no reason why we can't have a successful, maybe a 2-weekend use of the park. I know that residents may feel a certain way and they can give us comments, but I would like to see that type of option come back to us. Is that something, Jeff, you can create and present to us? I'm asking a question. I know you're sitting back over there.
We may also want to wait and see if council majority has that.
Well, I'd like to see him answer, so then we can
Sure.
see. Yeah,
That's
that would inform council majority.
I mean, I would
Yeah.
really have to oversee the cost analysis
Yeah.
of what that would be. Out Loud has sponsorship commitments that extend larger than the city of West Hollywood. So it's an established event that predates WeHo Pride, that we worked collectively with this body on integrating it as part of what the WeHo Pride programming would be. Is there always a place for like conversation on how like the schedule of the weekend lays out? Of course. Like, I think that there's a lot of factors for every year that we need to consider, and unless we have the runway to consider those options, it's really hard to say. It's really hard to say what sponsorship can come to the table, what a site layout looks like, what your overall budget would be, unless we have the runway to do so. And it's just something that we did not have last year. It's something that I agree with your comments about marketing. Out Loud did have a marketing budget. WeHo Pride did not.
I know.
So out loud as much as we could, especially in that it was out loud presented by WeHo Pride or at WeHo Pride, was how we wanted to extend what our limited marketing dollars were, by the way, to make sure we got as much for that. So we'd have to just look at all the scenarios and what those budget impacts would be.
And we didn't pay for Out Loud, right?
No. There
Okay.
was you waived fees associated with Out Loud, but the
Right.
cost of production for Out Loud sat directly with me.
Okay. So I would like to see a proposal given to us for what we did similarly this year, but also a proposal that looks like there's West Hollywood Pride weekend, and it's WeHo Pride, and perhaps a different weekend of Out Loud and how that would look as a consideration, because we have been hearing from community. And by the way, first of all, thank you so much for, in such a short time, you really did pull off an incredible West Hollywood Pride, and I want to thank you for that. You did a great job. And I wouldn't say that there's, a lot of people were very happy, and I wouldn't say there's necessarily criticism, more so suggestions to improve. I actually haven't heard a ton of criticism, and some of these suggestions to improve, revising the language in the contract with you so that subcontractors cannot use the term official for any of their events is going to be really important. So I'd expect that to be in the contract. As far as the time, I'm a little concerned because the new council, potentially up to 3 people, are going to be sitting up here. And I'm definitely not interested in a 3-year contract because I think that 3 people should be given the opportunity to be a part of this vision. Those are 3 new minds, up to 3, and they should have a say in this. And we are creating an LGBTQ commission that is going to be having in their purview, looking at the RFP, giving input. The commission is part of the community, and if we're going to have advisory boards and commissions, they should be given the power to give us recommendations. Otherwise, it's just for show, and I'm personally not here to just do something for show. I really want to empower our boards and commissions, and if we're giving them the power tonight, we should give them the power to give input. Clearly, they're not going to be able to give input for next year because we want to work with JJLA again for at least a year, but they should be able to give input moving forward. So I'm more supportive of 1 year, but I also want to know, I'm open to hearing why a 2-year would be different than a 1 year for you.
Councilmember, we have, with runway and time, we can execute great success. JJLA is not a community planner. We're experienced producers. We're event architects. And an event architect, much like a building architect, deserves an appropriate amount of time to be able to create a story. If I could put a proposal in front of you, I would love to create a story for WeHo Pride that takes us to the 5th anniversary. I don't think 2 years is enough. I understand that we need to have a set of requirements that we need to follow. That's something that I've done for Christopher Street West, for any number of clients, and would continue to do for the city of West Hollywood. Contracts are in place to be held accountable. I'm all about being held accountable, but I think a 1 or 2 year deal for a lifestyle event is not something that you see for the Super Bowl, for All-Star Week, or for a World Pride event, which is something that we've also produced and been awarded. Those are events that take 2, 3, sometimes 4 years to really pull off and execute. And ultimately, it's a decision that I think rests back with this body. What is the event that you want? The event that we pulled off, I think, was based on requests of creating something that's really world-class. And I think that absolutely World-class means that we need to pay attention to our community groups here, and I think we can do a better job at that. Like, again, 90 days. Like, 90 days for even those groups to get their ideas together. You know, there wasn't a whole bunch of time for any meetings between JJLA and all those groups on what we could really do. So whether it's 1 year, 2 year, or more, like, that's really what rests with me. But when I think about what has made JJLA successful in these 15 years I've been really lucky enough to work and put great people to work, it's having runway. So give me that runway and I will strut.
So if we, just to understand our RFP process, we did an RFP, we picked JJLA, and now you're coming back saying, let's extend the RFP and give JJLA longer so that we don't do another new RFP, correct?
That is correct. The RFP, yes, that's correct. We did an RFP last year.
So if we were to extend for 1 year or 2 years, and then the LGBTQ Commission and the new council comes in and gives all these new ideas, and let's say JJLA does 1 more year, we can then, with the new council and the new commission, make this decision next year, and potentially give them 3, 4, 5 years, correct? We can do the same thing we're doing now, but then later.
Correct. We would look at the timing, the RFP process from drafting through award of contract. In this particular case, took about 7 months.
Okay.
That was without meeting with a commission. So, but yes, we could do it again, but we would have to look at the timing of what that looks like.
Okay. My biggest concern is really empowering the new council to take part in this. That's the part that really resonates with me, as well as the commission. But again, the commission would be making a recommendation to us. We are the final body that has been elected to make these decisions, and there's going to be a Pride subcommittee. But the new council really should have say in our biggest event of the year and this process. So I'm inclined to hear from my other colleagues what their thoughts are. I'm definitely a no on a 3-year contract. I could be persuaded for 2 years, but I'm leaning towards 1 year and then looking at extending it afterwards when all of these things are incorporated. And then the new council could decide whether it's an RFP or not. But that's where I'm leaning towards. I think a story, I completely understand what you're saying. I think a story has been created that we now have West Hollywood Pride, and at the end of the day, this is going to be a year-by-year thing anyway. It's not. Every year is a new theme and things change, and so I want to hear from my other colleagues too. But that's where I am right now.
I believe we have another speaker, public speaker.
We do, Mayor. Mariah Darling, you will have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Mariah Darling. I'm calling to express my experience at this past Pride, this past summer. I went and peacefully protested. As we all know, Pride is a protest, and I peacefully protested with some comrades of mine, and we just wanted to bring awareness to the lack of inclusion of queer people of color and Black trans women in West Hollywood. And we were met with nothing but combative, aggressive, disrespectful police officers who were not welcome at Pride anyways. That's something I'm sure Marsha P. Johnson would not have approved of. And I just feel like there's another alternative to having police at Pride. And I also feel that there should be trans women being a part of these decisions and being included more in these groups of people who are orchestrating Pride. And I also feel that when I'm at Pride, trying to peacefully bring awareness to issues in my community, I should not be met with police officers who are threatening me and being physically aggressive and verbally insulting unwarrantedly. Like, I did nothing. There was an instance where a man literally told me, a white, hyper-masculine, cis gay male told me that I did not belong at Pride and I was ruining his pride. And honestly, that was like such a hard moment for me to be like, I had to realize that this is the community. Like, this is where I come and should be able to feel welcome, embraced, and loved. And I felt completely rejected.
Thank you, Mariah. Your time is up. Thank you.
Councilmember D'Amico.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to go to some of the questions from our speakers. I think Scott Schmidt and the Emerald Village raises a good point. I do think that this is a sort of a blending of two important parts of what is now going on in West Hollywood, which is our cannabis businesses and our new Pride. And I think if we are going to move into the cannabis events, it should be in this environment. It should be regulated and regularized through this event, because it has sort of a natural beginning and an end. And I think it's my sense that Emerald Village would understand that and would be willing to sort of exercise their best judgment and their best opportunities to participate. I'm not. I have to say, maybe I need to reread Mr. Schmidt's letter, or just have something actual about it written or presented by staff. But I'm not sure how. What's that called? The dollars that come in as support are related to whether or not we have events. So I do understand, I guess, that you had some businesses that did participate in your sort of fundraising and offset, but I'm not exactly sure how that has anything to do with whether Emerald Village has a participating part in throwing community user experiences. So I'm sure that will all get figured out, but I do think that we should work towards making that happen in June of 23. With respect to reviewing this contract by the new LGBTQ plus commission, so about 500 years ago, I joined the Human Services Commission. And at that time, the Human Services Commission did not participate in the RFP. They were notified who received contracts. And so, not unlike you, I came to this body and said, what's going on? You know, people with AIDS are on your commission and you're not actually interested in hearing from them about the services that you're providing. So then we were included in the development of the RFP and reviewing it, and the staff would make a recommendation and the Human Services Commission would make a set of recommendations. By and large, they were 90% the same. You know, you could lay them on top of each other and you'd see a couple of words in different places and a couple of organizations that might stand out. And I think when I was talking about that idea with respect to the LGBT plus commission, it was my sense that commissioners would have an opportunity to comment on what needs to be in the RFP and then make a selection, but the staff would also make a selection, and then that information would be sent to the city council for a decision. So whether that's what happens or not, I don't know, but that's what I imagined happening. And I think, as John said, the city council makes the decisions. Not because we just make decisions, but because we have to accept the responsibility for disasters, or not just disasters, but for things that don't work out, right? I mean, nobody's going to point at the LGBTQ+ Commission and say, you chose a terrible consultant and that's why we had an awful pride. I mean, that's never going to happen. It's always going to be that the buck stops right here, to choose a probably weird late capitalism reference, but no matter. And I wanted to talk about where I think we are with respect to having served for 11 years on the Pride Subcommittee. I think we are finally positioned, finally really well positioned. And I hear that there's, maybe not an interest in a 3-year contract, and I think Mayor Pro Tem, you make a very good point about that. But I guess what I heard in our Pride Subcommittee meetings was that the focus on the community was lacking. And in my mind, maybe that's because the funding for the community was lacking. And when we made these decisions, we were, I mean, it's hard to imagine here we sit without plastic barriers and masks, but, just 1 year ago, we were sitting at home, petting our dogs while talking about, whatever was on the agenda. And I think in my mind, if we divorce out loud from our from our Weho Pride event, we're sort of collapsing the tallest tent pole. And then we're left with a very small tent with very low poles, filled with community members for sure. But I do think that Out Loud provides a very, very robust backdrop for what I think is the responsibility of this city council to fully fund a community set of events. And now we really understand how much of the community wants to participate. In my mind, I don't know where everyone else was, in my mind I was thinking, all we have to do is put on a good event by Out Loud, and if they get people to show up to listen to music, then we've succeeded. But in fact, again, in my mind, we, super uber succeeded because we had this really robust participation in community events, but admittedly not robust enough. And I think the solution to that is having the Women's Festival also have a 3-year contract, having our commitment to advertising the community events and that the community events exist, and then, quite frankly, taking those 90 days from, I believe it's in February when this LGBTQ+ Commission will in fact establish itself, take those 90 days and work it in the same way Jeff did last year and really involve the new commission in how those community events should be populated, when they should be, how they should be organized into the larger first week of the month event. I do hear that. I mean, I really do. I really get that. Community events, they satisfy the kind of ache that is, causes a pain in some way all year round about how we don't feel seen, or we don't have the opportunities we want, or we see other people not having the opportunities they want. But I'm after sitting here for 10 years, I've never felt like the tallest tent pole was really was really stable. I always thought like this tent's going to collapse any moment, but I really think that Out Loud and Jeff is a really good event to organize the community events around. Not as a reflection of, not as a also ran, but just that this is going on in our city, and there's also this extraordinarily robust set of community events that aren't pitted against Out Loud, and Out Loud is not competing for people to show up. So I would just say that you know, maybe it's not shared, but I would say that a 3-year contract with an acknowledgement and a focus and a full funding of the community side of this is a way to proceed. And if we follow the timeline that got us to last year's event, and we back it up to the proper 8 months of planning, that it's really not very long after next July that an RFP would start for 2025.
Yeah.
So unless you want to put additional risk on 2024, I mean, that's kind of just how government works. You know, you start in October of 2023 to choose somebody who's going to do work for you in 2025. So that's why I think 3 years makes sense. I don't disagree that, you know, and I have zero interest in like being the guy who made the last decision on his way out the door. You know, like we say this and I flip off the lights and, you know, like perfectly good that somebody else makes the decision. But I do think we want to set up this event to succeed for the coming years. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. Councilmember Horvath?
Thank you, Mayor. I think one of the things that makes West Hollywood special is that we choose to produce an event for Pride. And when the city chose to take on its own event, as opposed to it coming from an outside organization as it had in years past, as it does in other cities, people actually offered critique to me about a city taking that sort of step. And I said that I had heard pretty strongly from members of our community that they wanted an event in West Hollywood, regardless of whether LA Pride chose to be in West Hollywood or not. They wanted to have an event that was reflective of the community and have a celebration here in our city. And I think that's something that makes our city special. So even though it is perhaps a bit unorthodox that a city government would host an event like this, and produce an event as opposed to it being a grassroots community event, I think it's something our community likes. I think it's something our community wants. And I definitely don't think the government should be producing an event by itself. So that's why we hire an event producer. And in this case, JJLA has been an extraordinary partner in doing that. I think that Women's Freedom Festival was an extraordinary partner in doing that. And I am very much interested in seeing, to use Councilmember D'Amico's metaphor, those tent poles continue to sort of anchor this conversation. To address the concerns about visibility of all different types of community being reflected in the event, I think that's exactly where this new commission can come into play, just as the Human Services Commission came into play once upon a time. It was a body that heard the contracts that the city had at one point, and after it was created, it heard those contracts. And yes, those contracts were already in place when the commission was created, but this can be an opportunity for community-based organizations, community groups to come to the commission and say, we propose this idea, we propose this event, we propose this enhancement to whatever the core West Hollywood Pride experience is. And that can be considered for funding, perhaps. That can be considered for co-sponsorship, any number of things. But I think what will make something feel truly community is if it comes from the community. And what is an event production is different, is always going to be different than a community grassroots event, because by their very nature, they're two very different things. It doesn't mean we can't fund both, but we just need to acknowledge that we want both, and then figure out what we're willing to pay in order to, what we're willing to spend in order to have both and have both be successful. I think the contract that we would have with each of JJLA and Women's Freedom Festival can outline what their vision is, and also outline what our expectations are of incorporating community events. Because I think we heard tonight that at least one of those is not a community-based organization, and that's not really what they do. They produce an event that is designed with input and direct and creative direction. That's different than a community-based organization, and that's okay. I think that each has their part to play. It's how do we bring them together to have a successful experience. And so for my part, I think that we can have both, we should fund both, and that the community organizations can be chosen by the commission, which is newly constituted, has lots of ideas about what inclusion looks like, who should be receiving funding, who should be at the table and included. And I think, but I do think in order for us to have a successful event, we need somebody with experience in solicitation of sponsorships. We need somebody with experience in producing the parade, the street fair, the concert, the core elements that we've become used to in the city, unless we're thinking of getting rid of those, which I'm interested in keeping them, mostly not for myself, but because that's what I hear from the community. I think the first weekend made a lot of sense because LA Pride has continued on the second weekend. It gives everybody the opportunity to have their weekend and their time and to continue the celebration throughout the region. So I'm very comfortable with us continuing on that weekend. And I'm also open to hearing new ideas. I know this was publicly noticed on our agenda, and you know I don't hear a community uproar that the experience that was had this past year was so awful that we have to completely re-envision what we did. What I'm hearing is that we need to enhance and do better and learn from this past year, but build upon it, not throw it out entirely. And so, and I'm happy to hear in the future that somebody wants something different. But I think what I'm hearing tonight is our community still wants to have a core signature event. We want it professionally produced. We want it to be inclusive of community organizations, and so we can empower our commission to bring that in the way they see best. And that and to the concerns that were raised about public safety, I do believe that the council addressed that earlier in conversations earlier this year, and I think that that was part of the conversation with JJLA as well, and what the event will look like going forward. So that's sort of where I'm at. I know that a lot of details will be worked out in developing that agreement, but I think that's sort of where I'm at.
Thank you. I think we have another public speaker.
We do, Mayor. Zakia, you'll have 2 minutes. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Meister. This is Zakia Wright. Throughout this conversation, I've been hearing, sort of different comments about that Out Loud brought folks to West Hollywood for Pride, but the people were going to come to West Hollywood anyway. It's been years upon years where we've built the reputation of having a world-renowned Pride, and so it's not about who's throwing Pride and how we're going to get them there. People are going to come. The question really is, what will community be met with once they get to Pride? And this year, they were met with being priced out of Pride because of the expensive cost of getting tickets to get into Out Loud. They were met with no real promotion for community activation. And so the crux of this conversation should be, what are we welcoming our community into? In 2019, it was the most amazing Pride that I saw. We had Santa Monica closed down. There was community engagement. There were community stages. There were community events all along Santa Monica, lined up, welcoming folks and allowing folks to be able to hear more about what was going on in the community, along with there being free concerts. And so I think that as we're looking at Pride and envisioning what it is, many of the comments, people said they didn't feel included. We can't ignore a community saying they weren't included. You know, Councilmember Horvath mentioned that no one came tonight. Well, people came to the Pride Subcommittee and they spoke out about how they weren't welcomed, right? We can't ignore those types of concerns as we're trying to build equity and all of that in the city and you know, making it a priority. We can't ignore the comments that have come in where people, you know, went to different places, went to different locations, weren't welcome, weren't this, weren't that. It's all a part of the conversation. And so, you know, one of the staff members said that it was a 7-month RFP process. Well, that shouldn't be the case now because now we have the framework. And so what's stopping us from next week putting out an RFP? If JJLA wins, fantastic, right? But let's make it a competitive process where folks take into consideration all of the comments that have been made by community in order for us to have the best Pride possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Zakia. Cleo, did you want to make a comment?
Related to this?
To the public comment.
Only that, just for clarification, the RFP process does not define the event itself. That's the planning that we've just had. The RFP process is to get the information out on the criteria that we'd like to have someone submit for, and then we start a process of interviews with those producers about the vision. It isn't really about the framework of what event happened this last year. So that can continue to change each year. So that was the only comment related to RFP process. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that both the Out Loud event and the other events that we have should happen on the same weekend because I do think that there is a synergy to having Out Loud, the music festival, as well as the community events and booths. So I would prefer to see it the same weekend. Also, there are other events going on around the LA area that people want to attend the month of June, and so I think having that weekend, and now we have it in advance, everyone knows now it's the first weekend, maybe we won't have some of the issues that we had this past year with conflicting events going on. I also think that we have to remember that we have the LGBTQ plus Arts Festival, Art and Culture Festival, which can be expanded, and or events that we want to see happen for the community over those, is it 41 days? I want to say 40 days, 40 days and 40 nights, you know, that we have, and the new commission will have a say in what those events are. So I think that we already have these 40 days and 40 nights of community events, arts and culture, and I think it can be expanded to include other types of events if that's what people want to see. I'm fine about the carve out for the cannabis sponsorship, or at least having a discussion about what it means to have cannabis at this event. As far as the length of the contract, you know, I had said at a previous meeting up to 3 years. I am open to 2 years. I do feel that there needs to be enough lead time for Jeff and JJLA to prepare for a stellar event, and I think that the commission is going to be just starting to, you know, feel comfortable in its skin in its new role. So I don't have a problem with a 2-year contract, a minimum 2-year contract. And I think that the Women's Freedom Festival, whatever contract year we decide for JJLA, it should be the same for the Women's Freedom Festival. If it's 2 years for JJLA, it should be 2 years for the Women's Freedom Festival. That's really all I have on it. And I know that Mayor Pro Tem, you have a couple more comments.
Yeah, I thank you. I appreciate all of my colleagues' comments. I guess I didn't think about it in the sense that the commission would get, essentially what happened this last year, staff did all of the work for all the community events. So what I'm understanding is that that's going to shift to the commission. So the community organizations. I'm sure staff will be involved in some way, but I think a lot of the responsibility should go to the commission as far as picking handling the community events portion and hearing from those that want to apply to come to the commission, and having the commission make those recommendations rather than, I believe, what staff did a lot of work, and that should really go to the commission as much as can be. Obviously, staff still needs to be involved in many ways and logistics and all of that because they can't be on the ground, but the commission, if the commission has that responsibility, I think that will, that is really great. So I have a different understanding now as far as that goes. I do want to say that the community events weren't all on the same weekend, Mayor, because we had community events that were happening throughout the month. It was the Women's Freedom Festival and Hotel Ziggy the whole weekend for another women's festival and so forth. But there were other community events happening. And we did give a higher budget than was actually allocated for some reason for community events. I think it was 160 and only 106,000 was allocated. So, right, so I do believe making a robust allocation to community events would be good. And I'm glad Zakia called in to remind us that in 2019 we did have a free Friday night that was very successful. And I know, Jeff, you and I had kind of discussed that potentially in the future with more funding we could do something like that. That is something I'm very interested in having, because that was a way to really allow community to come to the concert and not have the barrier of a pricing, and something like that would be something I would absolutely be behind. And it makes sense to keep Out Loud the full weekend, but maybe have the Friday night concert be free, and then discuss the other ones. So I think at this point, a two-year RFP would be great, or a 2-year contract extension would be great, and then a consideration of extending it even more so after 2 years, not necessarily doing a whole new RFP. I mean, unless, something comes up and the new council's like, no, but we did not get a ton of submissions for the RFP, but who knows what can pop up and what happens later. So I would be behind a 2-year extension with the vision of having that, which means we'll have to spend more money, but I think it's worth it as a city to have that first Friday night free for all. And I think the LGBTQ Commission and community would be very happy, and putting robust funding for community events that weekend and throughout the month. That would be something that I think everybody could get behind.
Councilmember Erickson, you want to take a stab at this?
I'm going to try, Mayor. Oh, wait. Sorry. David's got
Before you make a motion.
Or the city manager?
I just want to, because I think we need more clarity about the commission's role, and maybe we'll bring an item back about that, because the commission won't be in place until February, which puts us back where we were if we're looking at having them be the ones that select the community events and
That's fine. I think they can step in when they're in place for whenever we can do our work and then hand it off to them when they're in place. I don't think we need a whole other item with their role. Their role is their role. It's in their purview. So if everything gets rolling and we already do funding, and in 2 months, I don't think we're going to get community applications anyway, quite honestly, probably until, when did we approve the community applications next? It was March, April? When did they start last year?
We released the application in February. It was open for about a month, and the selections were made beginning in April. Ideally, that would not be the timeline that we followed for this year. We would love to have a couple more months to both promote the program we got more applicants.
Great. But at the end of the day, we started earlier and give them more time. There's still going to be a deadline. I think what will happen is they'll go to the commission rather than going to you all. I mean, that can logistically be figured out, but the point is to take a lot of that stuff from staff and give it to the LGBTQ plus commission that's more representative of an entire body, and we'll take, work off of you all too.
And if I could add, I think the issue with saying that the LGBTQ Commission would make the decisions from the applications.
A recommendation to us.
Or a recommendation
Yes.
to you all from the applications is that creates an even more shorter timeline. I think what Megan was referring to is that when we did it that way this year, the February to March and April, that didn't give the applicants enough time to submit all of their documents to the city, which is also a process. So I think for 2023, we can definitely try to incorporate some of the commission's ideas or organizations that they may want to include. I think we did that this year. We went to the LGAB and the TAB and said, hey, here's the link to the application, send it out to your to people that you know, so that we can make sure that we're incorporating everyone that wants to submit an application, and maybe we can do that for 2023. I think the time frame to have the applications go to them and do all the vetting, with them being a new commission, might be a little too much right now.
I hear what you're saying, but and so we can have staff do that this year, but some of it does need to go to them to one certain place. As far as input, maybe that's something we could figure out, but they should be fully involved once they're in place with any way they can be for this next year.
Okay. Councilmember Erickson?
Thank you so much, Mayor. I'm going to make a motion to move items 1 through 4, just in terms of recommendation, but a 3-year contract with JJLA as well as Women's Freedom Festival to match off of that parallel line to go together, including general knowledge about better marketing for Weho Pride, the Women's Freedom Festival, the exclusivity language that was mentioned in the notes, kind of talking about that, alleviating that aspect. Additionally, giving direction for staff and JJLA to work with the commission to look at community groups and be inclusive. I really liked what Councilmember Horvath said, involve the new commission on new events and community groups as they come forward. And then in terms of, do I need to say the words parade? To give direction to establish and continue a parade again for that time being, because I almost made myself, I did make myself sick last year when that happened. So, did I get everything?
Cannabis.
Oh, and thank you so much, the cannabis special events policy to come out with those restrictions, and I think expansion put into place.
And if the maker of the motion would allow one other item, which is to officially replace me as the member of the Pride Subcommittee.
Yes, I'm happy to do that as well. On the record.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. And the motion passes 5-0. Okay. So 4B went to consent, 5A went to consent, 6A went to consent, and 6B went to consent. We are now up to public comments. Do we have any public comments at this time?
Mayor, I don't have anyone signed up to speak in chambers.
Or Zoom.
Or Zoom.
Okay, do we have any council member comments? Seeing none, we are adjourned until our next regular meeting, which will be here on Monday, October 17th at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and have an easy fast.
Wow.
Oh, fast. I thought you said cast. And she thought you said cast.
Okay.